Good evening all, and welcome back to the GTfusiOn 2021 World Team vs Team Championship. I'm your host, Paul TX141, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and we are back for another night of fantastic racing, and we are expecting to see tons of action tonight, carrying on from where we left off last night with the wildcard pool of Group Y. We are here today taking a look at Group F, also known as Pool F, and we are at the Brazilian circuit Interlagos for what is expected to be a very tight, twisty, but fanatical race all the same. Now, we do have the best part of 10 minutes to go before we get underway with the opening qualifying session, and that gives us a good period of time to introduce our drivers and, of course, get ready to go. The format tonight will be as follows. A qualifying session, which starts off as qualifying 1, that'll be 15 minutes, where our drivers will have 15 minutes to set their best possible lap time. Following that, they'll then have the first race, which will be based on the grid order from qualifying, a 7-lap race, that's a sprint. Then our second race will be a 22-lap feature race, which is considered to be an endurance race in the sense that it will involve a significant amount of strategy, and the grid will be organised in terms of reverse grid order from race number 1's finishing positions. And then be taking a 10-minute break, giving our drivers a quick comfort break, and then after that we come back for qualifying session 2, which will only be 5 minutes in length, so a much shorter, more aggressive qualifying session, and then following that we'll have race number 3, which will be another 7-lap sprint, and the final race of the evening will be race number 4, a 22-lap feature-length endurance race, much like race number 2, where the order is determined by the reverse of the results of race number 3. So that's the format. And we're expecting our drivers to be absolutely exhausted by the end of it, because they've given it all they're going into this session, and indeed they're going to be giving it their all lap after lap tonight. But without further ado then, it's about time we started to introduce some of our drivers, and we also introduced the machine that they'll be racing today. So let's head down to the track and start to talk about our respective individuals. As we look across then, we're going to be doing our introductions tonight in terms of ELO rankings. So that is their current point score. Now, to give you an idea, each evening, or each round we should say, there are 6 rounds in GTfusiOn 2021. Going into each round, our drivers will be assigned to pools based on their ELO ranking, with the highest drivers coming in at the top splits, so the top 3 lobbies which race tomorrow, so that's A, B and C, and then we go down the order, of course, with the best part of, I think, approximately 18 to 20 lobbies this season. We have got a huge number of groups, and we're looking at Group F, so the 6th highest placed lobby out of all of them. Our first driver, who we're going to introduce in terms of his placement, is the individual known as Vavoito, who is racing as part of Team PRT. We're just looking around the circuit, we're going to find him very shortly. It's the Polish driver here, representing the PRT team, as mentioned previously, and stand on an ELO of 1250.09, and we're looking forward to seeing what he's able to achieve tonight, and he is the favourite driver, of course, tonight. However, he is not too far away from his PRT teammate, who is one Monsieur Yen JPL. As we look around the circuit here, we should be able to find Yen. Here is Yen, another Polish driver representing the PRT community on that ELO of 1250 flat, and we'll be looking forward to seeing what Yen is able to achieve out on the circuit tonight. Our third place driver, who is from France, is Stormo4's Night Fox. As Night Fox, in fact, we are getting underway with qualifying a little bit prematurely. In fact, we're getting qualifying underway earlier than expected here, so we're going to have to introduce those drivers as we go around into the qualifying session. But nonetheless, Storm's Night Fox representing Team Storm, the French driver here on an ELO of 1249.12, and well, we'll be looking forward to seeing what they're able to achieve and taking the fight, of course, to the PRT drivers, and indeed doing their best to get the most out of their car and get the maximum number of points tonight. Our fourth driver, meanwhile, is WSR's Batu. Now, WSR Batu, the Turkish driver, of course, representing the WSR community, and on an ELO of 1248, as all of our drivers start to make their way out onto the track. 1248 flat, mind you. It's very close between himself and Night Fox, and he's not too far away in terms of drivers trying to chase him, with the 5th place driver in ELO right now being the Italian driver of One Up McQueen 46, representing the EXP community, or the Extreme Professionals community there, or the Executive Professionals community as we can also know them as. But McQueen 46 will be looking to do his best tonight with an ELO of 1247.09 to get himself up towards that 1250 mark. Now, outside of McQueen, we then come on to a driver right now who is asking a couple of questions with regards to when we're meant to be getting qualifying underway. As we see, McQueen gets glitched back to the start. In fact, McQueen is reporting that he's experiencing a bug and can't actually drive the car around on circuit at the moment, so we may be seeing qualifying being aborted quite early on. But the driver we now introduce as we get qualifying restarted is TX3's Jack Balding. Now, some of you will know Jack from other series that we have spectated and broadcasted in, but Jack, having recently made a transition from the French esports team Zephyx to the community of TX3, and he's just getting ready to get underway at the moment. Coming into this with an ELO of 1,247, and I believe one of the youngest drivers to be racing tonight, with an age of 13, only recently turned 13, mind you. A very fast driver, and we will be keen to see what he can do, the British driver for the TX3 community. And he is identical in ELO, albeit on countback. It is his teammate Halbstark, TX3 Halbstark, the German driver, who is going to be slightly down the standings by him on 1,247 ELO as well. And we believe that Halbstark is just waiting to get back out on circuit while us resetting the qualifying session. We'll wait until we get back to seeing some of the drivers before we introduce more of them, but we say hello to all those of you who are tuning in chat right now, and we hope you are having a good weekend so far and looking forward to a frantic night of racing, as we are indeed as well. But we are just waiting to get underway right now. We should be underway within a very short order, and once we do, well, all the action will be coming right at you. But we are just getting the countdown at the moment. We are expecting qualifying to get underway at 15:15. As we cancel qualification there because of the bugs that will be experienced by our drivers, but we will be going back to the field very shortly. So we're just taking a brief breather. We are also just checking in to make sure that we're not hearing anything from our race organisers to say that things have been changed, chopped or altered at all, which I do not think they will have been. But we should be go again very shortly as we say hello to Weirsbit in the race chat. Oh, sorry, not in the race chat, in the YouTube stream chat. But we are just getting our drivers back over, and I think we are being asked to do a room change because of the issues that McQueen 46 is experiencing. So I'm just waiting confirmation as to what is happening right now. Okay, so we are going to be forming a new lobby as our first contingency measure, and then if that doesn't work, I believe Halbstart will be requested to host a lobby. But if you just give us a brief moment, folks, just some technical issues, which we are getting out of the way as quickly as possible, and then we will be go. So let's just take a quick reset of our lobbies here, and we should be back in racing very shortly. There it is. But in the meantime, we can talk a little bit about the car that's being raced tonight and give you a bit of background with respect to the car. So the car which you're seeing an example of here, because we raced in it as a Group Y yesterday, I as an individual, it was good fun. We are going to be seeing our drivers racing in the Emerson Fittapaldi tribute vehicle, known as the Fittapaldi EF7. EF standing for Emerson Fittapaldi. Now you're probably wondering, okay, well is this car special? Because it sounds like it's a rather special name, Fittapaldi. Well indeed, Emerson Fittapaldi is a legendary name in the world of motorsport, in that he was a prestigious driver, born in Sao Paulo, so he's a Brazilian driver, and that's why we are in Brazil at Interlagos, the circuit closest to the home residence of Emerson Fittapaldi. He was born in 1946 and will celebrate his 75th birthday as of December the 12th this year. At the age of 25 in 1972, he became the youngest world champion in the history of Formula 1, and that record would stand all the way up to 2005, when it would be Fernando Alonso at the age of 24 who would become F1 world champion. Now, to also call off a couple of the other achievements which Emerson Fittapaldi was able to accomplish in his racing career. He won the 1969 British Formula 3 Championship title, 2 victories in the Brazilian International Formula 2 tournament in 71 and 1972, 2 World Championship titles in Formula 1 in 72 and 74, and 1 kart championship title in 1989 and 2 victories in the Indianapolis 500 in 1989 and 1993. Put that all together, and then this car, which we're seeing here, is a tribute to the legendary man, in the fact that it is a mid-engine rear-wheel drive sports car, and it's the first vehicle ever produced by Fittapaldi Motors Car Company, and the first supercar to be ever produced in Brazil. So this car is produced in Brazil and only released for the Gran Turismo Sport initially as a concept car as part of the Vision Gran Turismo project between car manufacturers and Polyphony Digital and Sony Interactive Entertainment. Since then, the Brazilian F1 company announced they'd actually start production of the car, and they proceeded with producing a total of 39 of them in tribute to the 39 wins from F1 and IndyCar that Emerson was able to achieve. So this is a car in full tribute to the Brazilian legend, and that's why we're in Interlagos tonight as tribute to our driver who we are commemorating here. So without further ado, we will be getting underway again very shortly, as we just take a quick flick back to the YouTube chat and we say hello to Jacob, who is pushing for the Forza ATR boys. And indeed, it sounds as though you've got your favourite drivers there. Indeed, everybody tuning in will, of course, have their favourite drivers who they will be rooting for tonight. But we are just counting down that. In fact, I believe we are going to be getting qualifying underway right now. Yep, at 1:15 it is time for us to get qualifying underway. So we will be a go. And once we get out on circuit with qualifying, we can continue to introduce more and more of our drivers. So we're counting down qualifying right now, and we will start off with TX3 Halmstad, who we are going to introduce. So as our drivers make their way back out onto the circuit then for the first qualifying session tonight, it's the opening 15-minute qualifying session. This is going to give our drivers some time to embed themselves in and get used to how the car is going to run out on circuit, although they will have done a lot of practice, of course. The idea being here that every minute helps and every second helps, every lap helps, and they'll want to get as much rubber down the circuit, get used to how the car handles and get themselves fully up to speed and feel ready to put in the best possible lap they can. Now, of course, the big question on the minds of all of our drivers here will be, are they sufficient to get to pole? And that'll be their target, or to be up as high as the grid as possible. And people like Halmstad know that literally it's born and bred into their sim racing experience, and indeed their motorsport experience, in the fact that Halmstad, a very well known and well liked German driver from the TX3 community, typically seen in your top splits in FIA races on GT Sport, and indeed a very friendly individual, as we hear from down the paddock, and somebody that a lot of people love, and we look forward to seeing what he's able to do tonight. In terms of his ELO rating, joint with his teammate Jack on 1,247 and right in the middle of our field for a Group F. We then come on to our first ATR driver here, the Polish driver of Zig Chachau, who we're going to be referring to as Zig from this point onwards, representing the KRT community here, and the Polish driver on 1,246 ELO, making his way out to the final corner right now. Everybody sort of getting into a queue for the final corner, and you can see Halmstad in a hurry to get through, and they've been tripping over one another already this early on. Then we have got Zambonirino, who we're going to be finding out on circuit, and I believe Zambonirino, as the spelling is corrected there. Our Greek driver here, representing the HKRT community on 1,245.9 ELO, and very closely matched to ATR Zig. And then we have got 2 more drivers representing the KRT community tonight of ATR's Mycin, and they're both Polish drivers here. The first are 2 Polish drivers who we're introducing now. So Mycin here on 1245 ELO, and he is on the same ELO as his teammate here from the KRT community, and that is ATR Enjoy, who we'll be referring to as Enjoy from this point onwards. So here's Enjoy making his way up towards turns 6 and 7 right now on his opening flying lap. And then the final two drivers we do need to introduce are Storm Madder, the French driver here, representing the Storm community on an ELO of 1244 flat. And then last but not least, you'll have seen him last year in the ones that we commentated on, INS's Felix, the Italian driver, with a lot of fire in his heart. And he is on the lowest ELO ratings here tonight, 1223.35. That is all of our drivers that make their way around now, and we're going to get our first flying lap from WSR Batu. The Turkish driver here coming to the end of his lap, and what is it going to be? This is looking to be fast. We saw times of 125s being rumoured down in the paddock. Batu over 126.0 and one up McQueen with a 26.7. Meanwhile, Voito going up to a 26.6, and then Zavarino hitting a 26.2. Enjoy being the first to break into the 25s there with a 25.9. Mycin with a 26.5 on his opening flying lap, and Halstart with a 26.2, but we could attribute the trip over there with some of the other drivers as being at fault for perhaps him losing a little bit of time, as we do see Songo charging off wide out the first corner, and we see that TX3 Jack not too far behind right now in P8 with 26.7 as Night Fox comes across the line with 26.6. So we are seeing a lot of drivers in those mid to high 26s so far, but now as we go on to that second lap, of course, now the rubber's starting to be laid down, and our drivers will feel a little bit more warmed up despite the practice they've been doing, and it's going to give them more opportunities to put in faster and faster laps. As we see Batu making his way through turn 10 and in towards turn 11 in that first gear up to second gear, really using those gear shifts to get himself through turn 12 and then to turn 13, as we are seeing that we are having some issues from INS's Felix right at the back. He can't actually get out the pits right now, so we do have another pit glitch, and that may mean that qualifying has to be scrapped or we jump straight into the race and Felix has to qualify from the back of the field, which we're hoping is not the case because we want Felix to get out there. But Batu coming across the line right now and setting a 26.0, so pretty much identical to a previous best. And we see that Enjoy is coming around right now as Vivoto goes up to a 26.6, and Enjoy with that 25.7. The Polish driver really starting to put himself apart from the field, although I say that and then Mycin immediately responds with a 25.8, a very strong lap from the Polish driver. Indeed, the two Polish teammates doing a very good job of keeping with one another, as we are seeing that we are going to be asking for a qualifying restart here because we have got INS Felix who's not able to race. So I think that's going to infuriate some of our drivers, because 5 minutes into qualifying now, I've been in that position myself in other leagues where you have to do that restart and people will be thinking, well, they want to keep out on the circuit because they've got those lap times and now they've got to do it all over again, which is very unfortunate. But we have got our drivers introduced, and it does mean that when we do get underway again with qualifying in a very short order, we will be able to focus more on their individual laps. But whilst we are waiting now for things to be restarted, although I think Halstark is actually going to be asked to open the lobby in place of what's been happening, we'll keep you posted, and as soon as we can tell you, we'll let you know. I think we are going to get the lobby closure here. Indeed, everybody is starting to pull out. So I think it will be the case that Halstark will be the one to run the lobby. And we're just going to double check that we've got him on our friends list, which we should have. But let's just make sure. That's why you're not seeing anything right now. But it will come back in a very brief period. Apologies for this, folks. We are hoping to get things back underway in short order. Probably within the next 2 to 3 minutes. But things are being clarified right now. We are going to have Halstark run the lobby. Okay, so we are going to get the transition over to our alternate host here, and then whatever happens at that point, wherever the dice fall, we just go with it. So we are now just going to wait. Apologies for this, folks. We will be back underway within the next 5 minutes. But in the meantime, whilst we're waiting, and indeed whilst you're tuning in, be sure to let me know in the chat if you haven't already who you're supporting tonight, as we do see that Jack Balding has popped in to say hello. Supported himself there, of course, and saying that he's struggling with the car. Well, it is a very tricky car, and also depending on how it's been tuned, as we jump into Hal Stark's room, depending on how it's been tuned as well, you can make it much stronger for qualifying, but at the cost of its abilities in the race, or vice versa. But it is a wonderful machine, the EF7, and you can definitely see why the Brazilian manufacturer went to work on it. Alrighty folks, so we are back at trackside once again, and we're hoping that we're able to get everybody in. So we should be back underway any moment soon. Hopefully everybody is able to take part this time. As we just look back at the field. And it looks as though everything is gradually reconsolidating and working again. And fingers crossed as a result we can get back underway in the next couple of minutes. Yeah, and everybody is being asked to leave the pit and make their way past Sector 1 to make sure they can get past the timing line, so that way we can then get qualifying underway and everybody is okay to do so. So by looks of things, Hal Stark junking in to save the day here. And Felix definitely able to get out the pits this time. This is good to see, but we should have 13 drivers in all. We do seem to be missing a driver right now. Everybody is being asked to get out the pits. So we are just waiting on Mada to get out of the pits, and then we are go, go, go. As Hal Stark is also joining and going to be making his way out of the pit shortly. So that is all 13 drivers. I think we are good to go. So we are running the best part of 15 minutes behind schedule at the moment, folks, but qualifying 1 should be here any moment now. And then we'll be back on track as quickly as we can be, or as fast as these guys could drive around the circuit, of course. But everybody are making their way, snaking their way out the pits. We're just waiting for McQueen to get out the pits, and then we'll be go, go, go. Alrighty, here we go then, folks. We are go. We're good to go as we say hello to Storm 19's 666 Lucifer. We hope you're doing well. Bonjour. That's about as much French as I know. So, qualifying number 1 is underway. Let's see what our drivers are able to achieve, and hopefully this is not a pit camera, this is not a lobby camera bug. No, it's not. Our drivers are all piling out. They're all going out in quick order, and we see that Felix once again experiencing a pit bug. He just cannot get out the pits. Everybody else is able to, but not Felix. This is not a good night for the Italian, and it's looking as though he may be starting at the back for the purposes of race number 1. But nonetheless, as all our drivers make their way down the field, you can see they're all clustering together already. We have got a lot of very hot-tempered drivers here. And to talk about not only the car, but to talk about the tyres our drivers are using. So we are running these cars at 100%, both in terms of their weight and their engine power. So we're looking at about 600 horsepower here and just over a ton of weight. And in terms of the tuning available to our drivers, they're allowed to tune all the suspension and all the different characteristics in that regard, but not the transmission. So with regards to the transmission, they are only using the standard gearbox for like what everybody else has got, but it's all about how they've tuned the suspension and handling characteristics of the car and how they're able to get the most out of the fixed transmission setup here. They can also adjust the aero, but as all of our guys are making their way around, we are going to ride on board with a Voito, I should say there, as we see the Polish driver make his way through the final couple of corners up the hill towards the start-finish line to begin his opening flying lap, and taking that wide line there in order to get the maximum possible speed down in towards turn 1. So coming down to turn 1, going on the brakes at 50 metres, stamping down those brakes to second gear and turning in, and now snapping to the right for the centre S here, keeping it in second gear and then stomping down that throttle and building up the speed through turn 3 as quickly as possible here before going down the Repro Posta towards turn number 4, building up that speed, shifting at last possible moment, going up to 9,200 RPM before braking at the 80 metre mark there and coming into turn number 4. A very smooth transition into turn number 4 there for the Polish driver as he now goes through 5 and up the hill towards turns 6 and 7. Now as he makes his way up towards turn 6 here, he's got to get on the brakes. He goes very deep, but he collects it using second gear. But the problem with the car is now he's lost time because of the understeer. So as he goes into 8, you're going to see he's going to try and make up for that through downshifted to first gear. Now tucking it in towards 9 and trying to keep as close to that apex curve as possible, but being greedy on the power as he makes his way out of 9 up into 10 and breaking down hard here into first gear. You missed the transition from third to second there. It was almost as if it happened in a blink of an eye, because it did. And now through turn 12 he goes, using the upshifts there and turning in as aggressively as possible. And now into turn number 12. Get this right and you've made your lap. Get it wrong, however, and your lap is in tatters. He gets it right, and now as Voito makes his way up towards the start-finish line here, turns at 13, then 14, and then 15. The series of left-handers, which are more flat-out corners than actual standard corners. He's going to come across the line here. This is looking a very fast lap, but it's only a 26.5, and we have already seen 25s as Enjoy comes across the line and takes to the racing line to do another lap. Mycin doing the same way, 26.2, so Mycin 90 could go a lot faster as Batu from WSR sets a 26.2, and Felix will be starting from the back of the field in race number 1 as we see more and more drivers come through here. McQueen 46 at 26.6, and then we do see that Zig Chikau, or Zig as we're referring to for this point onwards, set it at 26.0, then putting him in a provisional pole for the time being. So Zig doing a very good job on that opening qualifying lap as Night Fox sets a 31.3. I think Night Fox just giving himself some space as we see How Start from TX3 setting a 26.4, and as all our drivers are making their way around onto their next lap, we stay with Halbstark here to give you a feel for how it's different between the different drivers in terms of how they tune the car and the driving styles. Halbstark going very sideways out of the centre S and now making his way down towards turn number 4. And we can see as he comes into turn number 4 here, coming down rather conservatively on the brakes there. Quite a gentle braking technique by comparison with what we saw with Mycin earlier. It was not Mycin, Vivoto earlier on. And as he makes his way up towards turn number 6 and 7 here, just snapping the car in very nicely controlled through the double apex right-hander of 6 and 7. Now up into 8, and you're going to see him come down to second gear, then first gear, going late on that downshift transition from second to first. And I think why Halbstark's doing that is because he's trying to get the car settled so that way he gets better better turning control through the corners, and it's working out as we see Enjoy cutting away from Hellstar here. Enjoy setting the pace now with a 25.7, much like what we saw in the aborted qualifying session, and his teammate Meissen were 25.8. These two really working it hard right now to pull away for the rest of the field, but to say that the Greek driver Zambanero, who goes very sideways out of turn 2 and almost loses the car there, it's more of a drift through the corner as he resets to the pits, ending up with what was, as we see Felix still stuck in the pits and not able to go anywhere. Zamb with a 25.9, so he is chasing after the field right now and chasing after those leaders, as Zig from ATR is also on that 26.0. The Polish drivers here really coming on strong, as we see the number of drivers resetting themselves to the pits, getting a fresh set on to go again. Of course, tyre wear isn't modelled for the purposes of qualifying, nor is fuel consumption, but for some drivers, going out there on a clear head and a fresh set of tyres, ones that you warm up again, is all the difference mentally for them. As we can see right now in terms of qualifying laps, Jack really struggling to put in a strong time. His previous time right now being a 36.2, it has not gone well for the TX3 driver as he's continued to make his way around circuit and being caught behind Madder right now. And Madder on a 27.3 find himself 1.5 seconds adrift of pole position, and indeed 2.5 tenths adrift of his teammate from Storm, and that is this man here, Night Fox, who is making his way through turn number 10 and up in, well, not turn number 10, yeah, it's turn number 10, and then in 11, we're getting our circuit right tonight. And as he comes down towards 12, this is an improvement from Night Fox. It is a 10th up so far based on his first two sectors, but what about the final sector? Can the Fox fathom it? As we can see that Madder improves to a 27.1, and will the Fox be able to match that? If not, well, I say match that, it needs to beat it and definitely get into those 26s. And as they come across the line here, it's going to be a 26.8, a great improvement by 2 tenths by Night Fox, putting them into provisional P11, getting them closer to the midfield right now. We have got a very tight midfield, folks, in the fact that our midfield is pretty much from 4th all the way down to about 10th place. Everybody is in the 26s, so we've got pretty much the majority of the field covered by a second right now, as we follow the Greek driver Zavarino as he makes his way down towards turn number 1 on another flying lap, and we'll take you through it. He's missed the apex a little bit there of turn 1, but turn 2 he's going to snap across it, drifting across the apex curve there in order to avoid cutting it, but you can see where he's gaining time, but he's also losing control of the car, and that's going to be something he's going to have to be wary of in race conditions where that tyre wear is a major factor. Well, the fact we have got a tyre wear of approximately ×8 and fuel ×9. But as he makes his way down through at turn number 4 here, getting it nice and planted on the apex curve before coming through 5, you can see that Zab, whilst not improving too much right now, as we see Voito improve to a 26.4, the Polish driver promoted themselves up to provisional P8 right now, but that's how close it is in terms of getting onto the front row, as we see Batu improve to a 25.8, but staying with our Greek driver here, who we now flip to the third person camera, coming out of turn 9 right now, collected through turn 9. How's he going to do through turn 10 as he comes down hard on the brakes? I think it's going to be a nice run through turn 10 here in first gear, and now coming out of the corner, you can see absolutely barreling up the gearbox, and now charging into 11, now down towards 12. Only one more major corner separating Zab from then the long run down to the start finish line, our timing line. It hasn't been the best of laps so far, but he has got to beat his current qualifying lap, which is a 25.9. It's only 1.5 tenths off of pole position right now. In fact, it's been expanded a little bit. It's almost 2 tenths off of pole position, and as he comes across the line, he decides to go onto the racing line at the last minute to put in another lap. But Batu, the Turkish driver, improved to a 25.8, and it's less than a tenth. In fact, it's just over half a tenth separating our top 3. This is how tight it is for being on that front row, and you need to be on the front row at Interlagos here to make yourself safe going down into turn 1. Of course, getting a good launch is also helpful, much like having a good breakfast before you go racing, but that's beside the point, as we see Batu making his way out the final corner, not improving and almost losing it there. A bit of slap oversteer, and Batu having to take emergency action to get the car under control as we see them come out, and this will not be a faster lap. But meanwhile, looking around the field still, we can see that Halstark on a personal best right now, and we're going to stay with the TX3 driver as the German makes his way into 11 and 12, coming through the left-hander 11 right now, and you're going to see he's going to absolutely hug that apex curve, gradually bringing that throttle 3 tenths up on his previous best, so this is looking a very good lap from Halfstart compared to what we have seen so far, as Jack improves to a 26.1, putting in provisional P7, 3.5 tenths clear of Halfstart. But how's Halfstart going to respond here? I think we've got a little bit of competition forming between the TX3 drivers, and as Halfstart comes across the line, I think it's going to be another flying lap. He's going to go to the racing line, and he picks a 26.1, when I think if he'd stayed over to left, it would have been a 26.0, so he'll know that he has got the possibility to get into the 26 zeros, if not those 25 nines, and Halfstart's just got to find 1 or 2 more attempts in order to guarantee it. But we can see that Jack now has improved considerably and is still on a personal best, but he does have some traffic ahead of him, and this may be benefiting through Sector 1 in the fact that he's got the slipstream of Zig's car, Zig from ATR there. As he makes his way through the subsequent corners, I think this is where Jack is going to find a little bit of compromise in terms of his lap times. Pardon me, because now he's got the dirty air of the car in front to deal with, and it may just cause him a little bit of understeer as he goes into the corners and comes out of them, particularly the turn 10 apex, one of the hardest braking points, and where you've got to gradually feather the car into that apex. But Jack so far keeping it cool and improving as well, and if he can stay close enough now as he goes up the hill behind ATR Zig, he will gain a lot of time in that slipstream. But let's see, as we're going to follow Zig across the line first. He makes his way through the final set of corners here on a 26.0 at the moment, the Polish driver, as McQueen 46 improves to a 26.4. What is it for, well, ATR's Zig? It's not an improvement, and Jack improves to a 26.0, putting in provisional P6 and ahead of Zig, as we see Marder improve to a 26.9 from Team Storm. But what about Halfstart? That is the big question that I think a lot of people are asking right now, because he was able to hit that 26.0. We saw he's not improved on this lap, and he's trying to use Batu in order to pull him around the circuit right now. You can see that Batu is on a flying lap as well, with only 4 minutes this qualified session to go. And I think Halfstart needs that slipstream. He feels he needs Batu to just give him that little bit of a boost, where Batu's lap, it should be pointed out, was done in clear air. I think Halfstart just wants a little bit of a tow, and if he can get that, it's going to help him massively, as we see the German driver come down into turn 4 for the 8th time of asking in this qualifying session. Now elsewhere, meanwhile, we can see that provisional pole is still held by ATR's Enjoy on that 25.7, a phenomenal lap, and the only driver in the 25.7 so far. The closest driver to him, of course, being his teammate Mysin, the Polish driver, 25.8. These two being inseparable in qualifying, it should be pointed out. They literally have been at the peak of the performance so far, but there's plenty more time to go here as Mysin comes across, and he does not go for the fast line, so he instead opts to go for another flying lap. As we continue to see if any other of our drivers do improve at any short order, nobody improving so far, as we see Zabarino right now making his way up towards turn number 10, and as he makes his way up into the corner here, a little bit wide of apex from what we can see on camera, but it was still a rather consistent run through the lap, and now making his way through 11 and up into 12. Can he improve here, the Greek driver, as he makes his way into the final sector? He is almost a 10th up on his previous best, as Night Fox improves to a 26.5, and as he makes his way down now, the Greek of Zabarino, can he improve and get himself up into the top 2 positions? That would be where he'd love to be. Will he be able to do it? However, I'm not sure right now. As he comes up to the line, then it is a 25.8, which is an improvement, but it's not enough to promote him from his current qualifying position. That's how close it is. And what about Halfstart? Meanwhile, we can see that he's still on that. He wasn't able to improve on the previous lap. With 2 minutes to go, he has got the best part of 2 laps remain in his qualifying session. Indeed, we can see Jack, in fact, and also Night Fox getting off that racing line and trying to pull out the way to get themselves some clear air, making sure not to impede Halfstart, alternatively Batu, as we see Jack pulling off the line once again. Well, it's a little bit of a back and forth here. I think he's trying to let Night Fox through on a corner, but he's let Night Fox through, and now they continue on their way, as we can see all of our drivers making their way through. And we say hello to Carlo Mastronardo in the chat. And, well, you can see that Mysin right now on that 25.754. And actually, Mysin now going pole, provisional pole, with 2 laps remaining for the Polish driver, and only pipping his teammate by the margin of 2 thousandths. It is so tight between our pole sitters right now, our front row drivers. I think either of them could have it, but don't rule out Batu, who's making his way across our timing lines very shortly. And as he makes his way into the corner, we see that it's not going to be an improvement, and he goes for one final final lap. He's going to go all in on this one and see if he can improve. Well, I think it's going to be a lot from Batu, who has been strong in those 25s, but I think the two Polish drivers have locked out that front row as we see all our drivers now coming on to their final qualifying laps if they're not already on them. Oh my goodness, and we can see that the Greek of Zabanero has improved to a 25.846. It's marginal gains, the best part of half a tenth, but that just gives him a little bit more breathing room from Jack right now, who is on his final warm-up lap, and then he will be on his final flying lap. Can he improve from what is at the moment a 26.032? And Zig from ATR is only a thousandth off of that in what is P6, because remember, Felix there is glitched on our timing screens and will be starting from the back, having glitched in the pits. But all of our drivers now making their way out, and we can see that Jack using a little bit of tow here off of the back of Meisen's car as we see Zabanero make his way back into the pit. So he is parked up for the rest of the evening in terms of this opening qualifying session, but we expect him to have felt that he's got himself onto that second row. That can anybody pip him? As we see McQueen improves to a 26.3, and that is good enough for provisional P9 right now. But as we come to the end of the time, and then who is going to be the first driver across the line? It will be Batu, who makes his way through. Has the Turkish driver been able to improve and get himself onto that front row? It's not looking likely, and it's not an improvement. What about Halbstark? It's not an improvement from the German driver either, as we see the Frenchman of Nightfox improve to provisional P10 with 26.4. But remember, we have still got drivers to respond, as we can see somebody else making their way up towards our timing line right now. Who is that coming up through as we hop through our drivers here? It is, well, it appears to be Mada who's pulled off the racing line, and it's then Yenjay PL who is improving. We haven't seen much of Yenjay in qualifying, does not improve in fact, and will be qualifying on a 26.6 in the end, and that will be in P12 as we look around, and we can, in P11, and I think all of the rest of our drivers are now making their way out, and the first driver to be next across our timing line will be Enjoy as he makes his way across the line. Then is it going to be enough to get him ahead of Meissen, his teammate? I mean, if it is, this is going to be so close between the two of them. I think you could put a thread between the pair of them. No, it's not an improvement. What about Meissen? Does he improve even further? Not quite. Jack does not improve either. We've still got drivers coming through meanwhile, and I think it's Zig who is now the last of our drivers to come across the timing line to complete this qualifying session. And does he improve at 26.0, which was set on his opening flying lap? He does not improve. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is your opening qualifying session, and pole position goes to ATR Meissen from Team KRT, the Polish driver there, picking up pole position by 0.02 of a second over his teammate from KRT. Enjoy. What a qualifying session, and now it's time for race number 1. So as we pan down to the grid then, it's the KIT drivers on the front row of Meissen and Enjoy. Behind them, Batu and Zabanero. But watch out for the likes of the TX3 drivers of Jack and Halstart, starting at P5 and P7 respectively. And Felix, what could he do from the back of the grid? And it's lights out and away we go, and Batu getting the better start of our top 5 drivers as we see McQueen spinning out on the start line immediately at the start. Meissen getting the better launch though, and as they all make their way down in towards turn number 1, Batu trying to go around the outside of Enjoy but not finding any space to do so in the end because of the closing nature of the corner into turn 2. Jack in P5 right now, finding him on the outside of Zabanero, and is pushed wide a little bit trying to go around the outside but tries to rejoin. And as they all make their way down towards turn number 4 for the first time of asking, it's Enjoy and Meissen pulling away from the field as Batu finds himself a little bit further back, and Jack running off again through turn number 4 there, and Zabanero gaining, as is Zig, who has made his way up to P5, and Nightfox, who is all the way up to P6 right now and doing a phenomenal job. Nightfox getting his way up the order as everybody is charging through, and well, Nightfox right now is really doing a fantastic job, the Frenchman, as we see Voito up into P7 as well. So a lot of the contact, or at least the distance between drivers further down the order, has really benefited those who qualified right at the back, as I believe Felix has not even been able to take part in the race due to the bug in the lobby, so we have already got one retirement for the evening. That is INS's Felix, which is very unfortunate. As all of our drivers come through the final corner in terms of the overall corners and make their way up the hill now down towards our timing line, we can see that our field is very closely packed right now, but it will be as they make their way to the end of lap number 1. Mycin are leading by a gap of 1 second over Enjoy. The two Polish drivers having a very good start. Batu chasing after Enjoy, 3 temps down. Zamanera in P4, Zig in P5, Nightfox in P6, Wito in P7, Halmstark in P8, Jack in P9, YenJPL in P10, Madder in P11, trying to find a way to get a little bit closer to that top 10, and McQueen, after spinning on the start line, in P12 right now, trying to make up for lost time earlier on. But meanwhile, as we look further back, we can see that Batu getting ever closer to the back of Enjoy, not finding a way through this time in this sprint race, and I think he is going to try and put the pressure on as much as possible and then go for a move right at the end if he can find the place to do so. But the battle for P7 right now really hotting up as we see, I say that, and you can see right now, Zig versus Zabanero. Zabanero under a lot of pressure from Zig as they come up into turn number 8 for the second time of asking. The Greek driver really finding Zig's putting a lot of pressure on him as they make their way through turn number 9 and up towards 10. And I think really right now the big question for Zig will be, can he force Zabanero into a mistake? Because Zab seems very composed, but I think he's worried about Zig in his rear view mirror, and he might be able to just put him off a little bit if he continues. But as we ride on board right now with Voito in P7, who's lost sight a little bit of Nightfox ahead. He's got a rear view mirror full of Halmstarks, you can see on the left hand side of his cockpit screen here as they all charge up the hill. Right now no driver really gaining an advantage on that, although you can see that Halmstark, as we hop away from there, Halmstark has got a lot of momentum coming out of the final turn this time as they make their way up towards the timing line for lap number 3. And well, I say that, and we've got up front, we have got side by side between Zabanero and Zig as they come up into turn number 1, and we can see that Zabanero defending and Zig holding to the outside, but in the end having to back out of it. It's just not working out, and as a result Zig having to wait to go again. But you can tell now Zabanero will have that in his mind, in the fact that Zig is really starting to put some pressure on, and behind them Nightfox has fallen back a little bit, and Voito has now started to gain some ground on the Frenchman. The Polish driver looking dicey now as we're going into the second third of this race, as we're getting into that second stage of the race where people are now settled down a little bit and the pace really starts to be unleashed and the tyre graining starts to come into effect as they all charge their way around the circuit right now. I know we've got a number of fans for Ziggy in the chat and we say hello to them. Nightfox are really coming under a lot of pressure and forming a bit of a traffic jam right now, as we can see that Jack has moved up to P9, having got past PL a little bit earlier on. We didn't see that on camera. I think there might have been a mistake given the gap, and Jack battling with Halmstark here going into turn number 10, and the two TX3 drivers side by side, and the last thing you want to do is take your teammate out, and Halmstark coming back at Jack in fact as they make their way up towards turn 12. And I think Halmstark's trying to get the message to Jack, look, I know what I'm doing, okay, you don't need to put pressure on me. And Jack at the same time being very competitive with his teammate here as they both go side by side, and who's going to hold on to P8 here? But remember, all the time they're fighting, they're costing one another time to our race leaders. And speaking of race leaders, Enjoy under attack from Batu right now, and Batu making his way into turn 1 and again found himself on the outside as we see our two TX3 drivers battling into turn 1. Halmstark on the inside, they're going ultra defensive, and you can see the momentum they're losing on that battle for P6. They need to settle this down very quickly in my opinion, because the more they fight, the more they're costing one another time to the guys up front. And I think neither driver wants to accept second place to the other this early on the race, as Jack has got himself down the inside of Halmstark, and I think that does mean that Halmstark's coming back again with a cut back out of 4. They're both fighting to the literal very end right now, but Jack has to tuck in behind Halmstark and let it go for the time being. And really, that was a long sequence there, but I think that's going to set the tone between the pair of them tonight in terms of both battling for position. Of course, it is both a team championship and also a driver's championship, so you want to be the number one driver, but at the same time as well, you don't want to take your teammate out, because that's going to cost you a lot of points with your team. Well, cost you a lot of respect with your team as well, should we say. But we can see as they're all making their way through and down towards turn number 12, once again, it's a case now that Nightfox has been given a little bit of a breather, although Voito is getting close here, but Night Fox driving a really consistent race, having had that early pressure, but made a lot of ground on the launch, and now just holding on to P6 as best as they can, as we can see that Batu has fallen 8.5 tenths down off of Enjoy, and the slipstream zone here, folks, is set to real, so it is 0.75 seconds, as we do see that we have got the battle between Night Fox and Voito hotting up, and Voito going to the outside, and Halmstart versus Jack is kicking off once again, and Halmstart making it clear he's going to go defensive versus Jack, and cutting off Jack's front end there before he can even get alongside, and I think Halmstart is now starting to put his foot down a bit to say to Jack, I'm taking this place, and Voito, meanwhile, in the battle for P6 on the inside, he's got it done in the slipstream race, down towards turn number 4, and Night Fox is now down to P7, but I don't think Night Fox will feel too bad about that. He'll probably just settle down and let Voito pull them on a little bit and perhaps come back for a move on the final lap, because Night Fox knows that they've got good pace versus Voito. They just need to keep deploying it and they'll get there in time. The PRT versus Storm battle will continue later on, I feel. Probably on lap number 7 we'll see another battle for position. But meanwhile, up front, Mycin leading by the best part of 8.5 tenths as he makes his way out of turn number 10 for the 5th time of asking, and Mycin doing a very good job of just simply keeping everyone at bay. Everybody is singing to his rhythm sheet, although Batu with that fastest lap of 26.7, and on the previous lap it was a 27.8, so Batu having a disastrous previous lap. And I think it might be a little bit of tyre life now is coming into effect. Our drivers do not have to pit in this opening race, remember, but at the same time, it is one of those cases that where our drivers will be feeling that tyre wear just kicking in a little bit. And Voito right now, as we come back to that battle for P6, we can see as we go across the timing line here to lap number, well, I think Jack's had a mistake somewhere because Jack has disappeared well down our order, folks. Voito defended to the inside versus Night Fox. Can Night Fox get down on the outside? There's not quite enough, but Voito has to give the space to Night Fox, who will now try around the outside into 3, but what it means is that Night Fox is going to have the momentum now in the run down towards 4, and they're going to be in the slipstream here of Voito as they both come down towards 4. Voito holds to the inside, however. Night Fox is on the attack here. The Fox senses his prey, but can't find a way past the Polish driver, and look in the rear of your picture, you can see that Halmstart now will be sizing this up and thinking that there's potentially 2 moves available as they go on to that final lap. But further down the order, it is worth pointing out that we have seen Jack come into the pits. Now, I'm not sure. Well, Jack's got heavy damage. He's hit a wall somewhere. That's why Jack is in the pits. And remember, we do have heavy damage on, folks. So that means if our drivers pick up any damage, they have to go into the pits to repair it or drive on and expect that damage to compromise their race. So that's what's happened to Jack. He's made a mistake somewhere and gone into a wall. We didn't catch that on camera, but Voito right now and Night Fox really being caught up by Halmstart, and Halmstart here putting on a lot of pressure as we jump on board with a German driver who makes his way up towards turn 12, and he's got a face full of Night Fox to contend with, and he's got a lot of Fittapaldi in his front view, and he's got to be careful of the fact that Yen J is only 1 second behind, so fighting between these guys could be costly later on, as we're going to stay with Halmstart as he makes his way up towards turn number 1 for the final time of asking in this race. And I think we're going to be seeing a massive defensive action here as Night Fox goes to the outside to try and go around Voito. Halmstart tries to make it 3 wide but can't find a way into this fight, and it means that Voito right now is on the double defense here and makes Night Fox go to the outside from 3. But watch Halmstart, he's going to try and find a way to the inside. He can't quite get there for Voito, but he can get there for Night Fox. But he's got so much momentum as Halmstart, as Voito goes as defensive as one possibly can into 4 here, and Night Fox tries to find a way into this mix. Halmstart literally trying to scissor his way through the opposition here, cutting his way in, and now finds himself at the outside out of 5, and Night Fox comes back at him, and Night Fox is in the outside for turn 6 and 7, and Halmstart on the inside, and Halmstart will not want to give this one up. As you can see, he holds that inside, and instead Night Fox has to pull back a little bit, and this has meant that Yen J has now caught up to this, as has Madder, the Storm driver, who want to help out Night Fox as much as possible with them being teammates. But we have got this very tight battle for P6 right now, 5 drivers getting into the mix here as we look up front, and we can see that Mycin still pulling away, but Enjoy being caught up a little bit by Batu. But in that battle for P6, we can see that Night Fox right now all over the back of Halmstart as they come into that final corner, and I don't think there's going to be a move here, so it means at the end of race 1 after 7 laps, your race winner, ladies and gentlemen, will be the Polish driver of Mycin from KRT, making his way across the line, followed by Enjoy and Batu, Zabanero coming home in P4, Zig coming home in P5, and then it will be Voito who holds on to P6 ahead of Halmstart and Night Fox, Yenjay in P9, Madder in P10, and McQueen in P11. Coming across the line after that awful start for McQueen, but that is race number 1 complete, and Jack finishing P12 a lap down, I believe. Congratulations to our drivers, but to our race winner, Mycin. Now, I know what you're thinking, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm thinking it as well. That was just race for number 1, and we have got 3 more races to go. What can we expect? Well, you'll just have to stay around and wait for that, because we have got plenty more to come, I'm sure, and I think the rivalries are only just heating up. But in terms of those results then, here's the confirmation. We have Mycin finishing P1 ahead of Enjoy by 1.1 seconds in the end, Batu in P3 round off our podium, Zabanero in P4, and our top 5 being rounded out by Zig, with a phenomenal run from what was a difficult starting position, but he held on in the end and held on to that P5. Fastest lap going to Batu from WSR on lap number 2, a 1:26.797 for our our Turkish driver, as we make a quick note of those race results in the brief interlude period right now. So give us a couple of seconds, folks, and we will be back with you very shortly. So a phenomenal opening race there, folks, as we say. And right now, I think things are going to be clarified a little bit. And we are just getting confirmation with regards to that Felix will be treated tonight, unfortunately, as a effective full retirement, as is part of the rule book here, whereby because they're not able to get themselves out of the pits, it'd be clarified the same as it would be in a real world race, where at some race weekends, the team just can't get the car started for technical issues or whatnot. It is unfortunate, but I do think we have had multiple restarts here, plus also a transition to an alternate lobby host as per the rulebook. We don't really have that many more options, so it will be, I think, us pushing it forward nonetheless. But be sure to let me know what your thoughts were on race number 1, and I think we do have... I think it is Piosco in the chat who's a massive Ziggy fan and is really enjoying himself, as is Jacob. Thank you for the compliment there, Cobb. And Carlo Mastro Donato. There we go. Got it right on the 3rd time of attempt. So I think we are going to get one more lobby reset for race number 2 to try and get Felix in. Yeah, we are actually going to do that. So I think we're going to make a grace here. And then once that is done, if it doesn't work, then we are going to be rolling with things as they are. So we are trying one more thing. And we are hearing that Jack had 2 spins, unfortunately, hence why he finished P12 in the end. But hopefully he can bounce back. Remember, though, it is reverse grid for race number 2. So whoever finished the last, which in this case would be Jack, will be starting on the front row. And race number 2 is a feature-length race of 22 laps. And the thing about that 22-lap race is you've got all the strategy, and it's one where you've really got to settle down and to get into that rhythm. In fact, if Felix is able to race, he'll be starting P1, of course, given the fact he is treated as P13 in race number 1. So very shortly, we will be getting that lobby reset, folks. So there's the lobby crash, and we will reopen it very shortly. But in the meantime, just bear with us. This is a good time, if you haven't already, to quickly pop to the bathroom or get yourself a drink. Preferably a nice cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or a bit of beer, given it's a Saturday evening. Perhaps a snack or 2 as well, and then come on back. We're just waiting for Halbstart to reform the room. But whilst you're waiting, of course, let me just give you a little bit more background on the GTfusiOn Championship for those who are relatively new to it. So it is a massive team versus team championship, I believe, based on my knowledge. It was the first ever team versus team championship for Gran Turismo as a game enterprise. And it has only grown over the best part of what is, I believe, the last 10 or so years. And it is now at its largest it's ever been, with the best part of at least 10 to 15 teams taking part on a regular basis. Plus, we also have additional teams who are planning to join in the near future. And we've also got teams who take part on a part-time basis. We've got a whole variety of drivers. And it is a fantastic competition with the best teams with Gran Turismo's esports community taking part and doing their utmost to win. You'll see teams like TX3, Zephyx, WSR, GTBE, you name them, they are in here. And, well, it's good to have them all here, of course. And it's not as though you have to be the best of the best to take part in this. That's why we have the ELO system. We have so many different lobbies because we have teams at all skill levels and drivers at all skill levels taking part. And it is a huge circus. It's a huge community which is literally transitioning year on year between sim circuits and between games, doing its utmost to bring as much motorsport to a wider audience. And it's a good place to be as part of this community, I can assure you that. As we've got the Reform lobby here. We're just going to check with our host whether they do need the grid at all. So give us 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. So we're just checking whether Halfstark needs us to tell them the set order for race number 2, because remember now we've created a new lobby. It will be set by host, and Halfstark will be our lobby host here. I think we are just waiting for all our drivers to ready up so that way we can set the order. Though this is not looking too good, the fact we've had multiple drivers join and then leave, but hopefully that's just them doing some internet connectivity resets rather than anything else major. So whilst we're waiting, let's talk a little bit about the car, and let's talk a little bit about how our drivers have tuned it. So you will have seen in qualifying that a number of our drivers were essentially sliding the car around the circuit. Now, alright, we've got the thumbs up from Halfstark that he doesn't need assistance. That's cool. He's all set. So about this car, the interesting thing about the EF7 is that you can tune it for either the race or qualifying, or you can try and find a balance in between. Now, in qualifying, the thing about this car in particular is mid-engine rear drive, the rear end will want to come forward all the time. I underbrake and the rear of the car will literally, because all the mass is concentrated towards the rear, it will slide forward, and underbraking, it will naturally rotate the car through the corner. So it could be argued that for the purposes of qualifying, to get the best possible lap time, you want to tune the car so you have the loosest possible rear end. So when you brake, going into a corner such as turn 4, like what Enjoy's just done, you can see how quickly the car is going through turn number 4. You want all that car to literally come forward as fast as possible, so that way by the time you get to that corner apex, you're already thinking about putting the throttle down to get off the corner. You're not worried about braking into the corner anymore. However, what that means is you're putting a lot of work through the rear tyres. And in turn, in doing so, what that means is in the race, particularly the 22 lap race, which we're about to do, but also in the sprint race to a lesser extent, you end up in this awkward position whereby you've tuned a car that will be very strong over one lap, but as soon as tyre wear comes into effect, say after lap 3 or 4, your tyres will be in a rather desperate state compared to a car which has been tuned to balance that transition of weight from the rear to the front. So some drivers will tune the car to actually understeer a little bit more naturally, and only when you start to get on the power at corner apex will the car start to oversteer a bit more. And that balances the tyre wear across the front and the rear, but also means that the car is not putting too much pressure on the rear tyres alone. So that way, as a driver, you can feel all 4 tyres doing the work together, whereas in the qualifying trim, you may want to take that opposite approach of putting the rear tyres to work. Of course, some drivers will come to this race with multiple tunes. So I've come to the race for a tune for qualifying and the sprint race that follows it. And then after that, you'll have them change to their setup for the endurance race. So that's all to play for effectively here. Personally, it's the way I drive. I always like to set up my cars as if it's for the race, because I feel that I can gain more places. Unless it's a very short race, I gain more places in race conditions than I do in qualifying conditions. However, each driver will be different. What we did see over the course of race number 1, it's something that should be noted, is that we've noticed a number of drivers who didn't do too well in qualifying, but in the race they were much stronger as drivers, it would seem, and also perhaps the car was tuned better. And the name in particular who I'd like to bring people's attention to is, and I think we can all appreciate, is Zig, who did a very strong job in qualifying of keeping that car very well planted, keeping the pressure up towards the front rather than worrying about behind. And the same applied in a way to the driver of Night Fox, who despite losing out to Halstark in the end, did a very strong job from P6 of holding off Halstark and only giving up the place right at the end of the race. And that's something which had to be considered, and drivers will be starting to get that information on one another. Where the fact, remember, our lobbies are changed from each round when the ELO ratings are updated, so in a number of cases our drivers will be meeting different drivers tonight. As we finally see Felix out on circuit here, although he resets himself to the pits. And now we're just staying with Zabanero as he makes his way up towards turn number 8 on another practice lap. And what you're also likely to see as well now, folks, in terms of getting ready for the race, is where drivers were previously using first gear for a lot of these very slow apex corners, such as turn 10, you're now going to see them start to use second gear. And the reason for that is because they cut a little bit of the torque going through the rear wheels, and therefore the power being put through the rear wheels, by using second instead of first. And that helps save the tyres a little bit and not too much of a cost to lap time. So you're going to see drivers' driving techniques change very slightly now going into the race, and that will influence the way they drive and influence how much fuel they use. Now, we are going to do one very quick start to test whether everybody's able to get off the line, and it also is a test to make sure that Halstark has set the grid correctly, i.e. drivers don't put their hands up and say, hey, wasn't I meant to be starting P1 instead of P2, etc. So we are going to do a practice start. Don't get your blood pumping yet. But once we've got that practice start out the way, then we will be good to go. And I believe that whoever gets stuck on this practice start will have to forfeit, either retire from race number 2. It will be the equivalent of them not being able to get the car off the line if it's in the real world, i.e. the engine's blown or equivalent to that. But we are just waiting right now. A little bit of patience. I know we are running significantly behind schedule, but we're doing everything we can to get things so everybody's able to take part. So I believe everybody is readied up. Alrighty, so this will be a practice start. So this is the practice start for race number 2. Make sure everybody's connectivity is okay, and then we'll be good to go. So just bear with us, folks. As we pan down to grid, this will be your order for race number 2 when we get the official race number 2 underway. It'll be Felix on pole, Jack alongside him, and then right at the back, of course, we've got Enjoy and Mycin, who will be looking to carry the momentum forward. So as it's lights out and away we go, we can see Felix unable to pull off the line there, and all of our drivers having to take evasive action. So this does mean that Felix will not be able to race tonight, which is very unfortunate. Well, in fact, we've got 2 stuck cars here. We've also got Voito, who is stuck on the grid, who wasn't previously. So I think there Felix and Voito may be retiring from race number 2, which is very unfortunate. Voito is going to do a quick connection reset. That is the start check complete. We are now just waiting. And we are getting some technical issues for Storm 09's Madda as well. So Madda will have to rejoin shortly. But thank you for your patience at the moment, folks. So I think we are going to be losing Felix at this point. Felix will not be racing as part of this lobby for the rest of the evening. It will be classed as a full set of retirements. Voito, of course, rejoining. So we should be getting the... So we should be seeing Felix quit shortly out of the lobby, and then it will be Voito rejoin on a 50-50 here of whether he's able to pull off the start-finish line. Fingers crossed, of course, for the Polish driver, he is able to, given the fact he was able to take part in race number 1. Obviously, we'd love to see everybody be able to take part. I need 2 of our drivers out on track at the moment. But I think there is a concern growing down in the paddock right now that because of what's happening, we're going to see more drivers stuck on the grid at the start. But we'll, fingers crossed, toes, fingers, everything crossed right now. We should be able to get underway shortly. We are getting a little bit of disagreement at the moment with regards to what should be happening with Felix. Some drivers down the pit are asking that he shouldn't be racing from this point onwards. Other drivers saying that he should start at the back, and others saying that he should be starting at the front, as per the fact that he would be assumed to have finished in 13th. But we are just waiting now, folks. We are. Let's just make sure we can see it. Yeah, we can see everybody here. So I will not be leaving the lobby, Carlo, because my connection is fine as far as I'm aware. I've moved from multiple lobbies with this group. I understand your logic behind it, but I believe the issue at the moment, not attributing it to one driver or two, the stuck issue, I believe, is between Felix's and Vuito's connections, given they both stuck on the grid. And it normally means it's connectivity between the two stuck drivers. But we will be starting very shortly. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. So, race number 2 is about to kick off. Let's see who's going to be winning by the end of it. So as we pan down to the grid then, it is TX3, Jack on pole, but beside him, one-ups McQueen. Felix right at the back. Hopefully we can get him started, of course, and see what he can do. And of course, our race winners from last time out, Mycin. What is he able to do from P12? And it's lights out and away we go. And Jack getting a reasonable start there, but McQueen stalling at the start. And there's been contact. Zabanero being spun sideways into the wall as everybody's having to take evasive action from Zabanero's car. But we can see that McQueen under a lot of pressure from Madder and Nightfox. Madder and Nightfox doing a phenomenal job, the pair of Frenchmen there, getting their way up the order in very quick succession and doing a fantastic job of launching off the start. So Storm right now moving up to third and fourth, and already McQueen and Jack starting to pull away a little bit up front. Meanwhile, further back we can see that in the battle for what is P5, Yen J is still in P5 right now, and Halbstart all over his 6. But then we've got Mycin, who has moved all the way up to P7 after the chaos that we saw with Zabanero as they went off the start line there. And we're going to see that Nightfox is already putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the back of McQueen right now. And I think McQueen is really having to think about driving defensively here, or Nightfox got to try and find a quick way past. Now, in terms of strategies, folks, remember, there's two strategies available to our drivers. The two-stop or the one-stop. Two-stoppers will pit on lap number 8 and most likely lap number 15, whereas the one-stoppers pit on lap number 11. The one-stoppers being approximately 2 to 3 seconds off the pace of the two-stoppers over the course of the length of the race. That's per lap. But as we can see now that Jack leading by 1.5 seconds and seems to be pushing quite hard, whereas McQueen coming around and has got two Storm drivers right up their 6. So as we complete lap number 1 then, it is TX3 Jack leading by 1.8 seconds over McQueen, followed by Nightfox and Madder. Then it is Yen JPL leading the hunt for P5, with Halstark in P6 and Mycin in P7, having started right at the back as Halstark goes off circuit at turn number 1, gets it under control but drops down to P7, and Mycin gains another position. So it's then Enjoy in P8 right now, followed by Batu, then Sig in P10, and Zabanero with that disastrous start, the Greek now up to P11. What of the fact we have already had the confirmed retirement of INS Felix and also Voito. Voito was not able to race, which is a disaster for the Polish driver. Now Jack, meanwhile, still leading, and as we were saying earlier with regards to the strategy right now, you have to play it one of two ways. You've either got to go all in on a two-stop and just hammer the car around, or you have to drive to a set pace. And to give you an idea, folks, our drivers who are on the one-stop should be doing laps in the region of high 127s to somewhere in the high 128s, whereas our drivers in the two-stop should be doing 26s down to 25s at the end of the race. That is the trade-off here, and as we can see, all of our drivers making their way through right now. Not too much change as we see that Mycin find himself in the middle of a situation where he's got Yenjay in front and Halstark behind. He's gaining gradually on Yenjay, but Halstark is also in that mix. And as we come to the end of lap number 2, not too much change right now. Everybody forming a bit of procession, but this is what this race ends up all being about. Everybody has to think about how they're going to race it. As we do see Madder flash his indicator light to the right then, I think he's trying to say to Yen, look, if you want to make the pass, do it quick because I'm going to give you the room. Oh yeah, I think Madder's trying to signal he's not fighting at this point in the race. He's trying to just keep the time on circuit. As all our drivers come charging through turn number 1 once again. And whilst we've got a brief breather, we're going to have a look at what happens to Zabanero at the start. So Zabanero, as he got off the line there, he got into contact with Batu, dodging Voito's parked car. So Voito our other retirement there with the stuck situation, and Zabanero very fortunate to get that car under control. It could have been a complete disaster as Batu and Enjoy are battling through turn number 4 here. We've missed the start of the battle, but you can see that Batu has got ahead right now, and the Polish driver of Enjoy falling down a little bit. Enjoy not having the most enjoyment at the moment out of the race. And we just take a look back at how that occurred. We can see that in the drag race down towards turn number 4 and lap number 3, Batu just simply had that inside line. I think Batu decided to deploy a little bit more fuel this early on in the race to get the move done nice and early. But meanwhile, up front, Jack now leading by 2.4 seconds ahead of McQueen. And the two Storm drivers pursuing right now, but Madder really starting to fall back into the clutches of the midfield is Storm 97's Madder. As we can see, they're coming out of turn number 12 for the third time of asking and struggling to get that pace down as they come up the hill. Now, of course, from Madder's perspective, this may all be part of the strategy, but we can see all of our drivers really sizing one another up here. And I think it really does become that big question of a trade-off between going for an overtake or instead instead opting to stay behind and save some fuel and match the pace of the driver in front. And of course, patience will burn as we see that Halstark under pressure from Zig, but Zig backs out of it. I think Zig's trying to send a message to Halstark here. Look, I'm going to be coming through if you don't get a move on within the next 5 minutes or so with Mycin. I think he feels that Halstark's taking too long to move up the order, but then again, Halstark may be on that on that one stop and deciding to go a bit longer. As we can see, the fastest lap so far has been by Zig, a 1:28.4, which would be indicative of us expecting a 2-stop from Zig, because all of our lap times have not been any lower than a mid-28, although then again our drivers could be trying to extend the opening stint to go more aggressive on their 2 other stints in the 2-stop strategy. But as we look around our order once again right now, let's take a look at that telemetry and see what our drivers are doing, where it looks as though Jack is potentially going for a 1-stop here, or a very elongated 2-stop where he's going to do about 10 laps on the opening stint, because you can see that the tyres are in relatively good condition and the fuel is down to about 60%. Meanwhile, with McQueen, we can see McQueen is definitely trying the 1-stop here, because that fuel is about 65% right now, and it is doing a rather good job, is McQueen, of holding onto that fuel. Meanwhile, Nightfox about the same. And what about Madder? Well, we can see that from Madder's perspective right now, again, a similar situation of the fuel, doing a lot of fuel saving and early upshifting. And you can see a lot of our drivers will be upshifting at about 8,200 RPM as our battle for P7 continues here. It's 3 wide down into turn 1. Zig is on the very left-hand side, and he makes the move. Halstark looks to the inside as well, and Zig with the double move on the pair of drivers here. And let's take a look back at that. That was a phenomenal move by Zig, and I think it was critical. So you're going to see he has the momentum on Halstark and also Mycin, who are going for that fuel-saving approach, and then Zig just simply had that inside space. And as the camera cuts around here, Halstark looked to the inside as well for Mycin, and Mycin was also exposed to Batu in the rear of your camera. So that's how it all played out, and Mycin losing 3 places with 1 overtake. That was absolutely terrific stuff from all 4 drivers. Great respect shown. But coming back to our telemetry analysis here, we can see that after looking for our top 4, Yen right now, our P5 driver, on a little bit less fuel than our front runners, but I think he's trying to make this opening stint go long, but it's going to be a struggle to see how they can get that to go 11 laps, but we will see in due course. Meanwhile, the guys behind, definitely in the case of Zig, Zig's got rear damage as well, so he has had a hit on the rear of the car, so that's why it's a little bit unstable out the corners. But Zig pushing on, and is definitely on a 2-stop. That is a bingo fuel situation to get that to an 11th lap. Meanwhile, Batu definitely going for the 1-stop here with a lot of fuel remaining, as is Halstark, albeit Halstark has been a bit more aggressive on the tyres on these opening stints, and it looks as though his front right in particular is taking a lot of abuse here. With the track being anti-clockwise, mind you, we'd expect the right-hand tyres to be attacked, but those front tyres on Halstark's car are struggling a little bit compared to other drivers. Meanwhile, Mycin in a similar situation, albeit better on fuel, and then we have got Enjoy, who is, well, a lot of damage on Enjoy's car. That's why he's falling back down the order so much. That damage really costed him time. And then it is Zavanero who else had that damage. Remember that race start, those two coming together for unfortunate circumstances, and I think they're trying to go for that 1-stop and nurse that damage all the way through. But we can see right now Madder really forming a traffic jam between himself and all the other drivers as we hop on board with Madder and look back here, and we can see from the French driver's perspective, people, look at that traffic jam of cars, all these Fittapaldis trying to find their way through, and Zig wants to be at the lead of this pack, and surely Zig's got to make his mind up whether he's going to go for the 2 or the 1-stop here, because Zig is so critical of fuel right now. It's going to be huge if Zig's able to save fuel to make it to a 1-stop, and you can see that Zig is trying to find little gaps every time going through each of these corners, whether it's turn 8 or turn 10. He's trying to find just little spaces to get alongside Madder to get the move done without needing to use too much fuel to get the spot. And you can see Halstark in the rear of the picture there, dropping out. In fact, Halstark making a right hash brown of things and dropping all the way down the order there, but I think Halstark recognises the fact that there's no need to be too aggressive. But what happened to Halstark there? So coming out of turn number 10 then, you're going to see for 11 that Halstark, I think Halstark gets this right, or does he go a little bit deep and out of the corner? No, he gets that right. And what about turn 12? That's where it goes wrong for Halstark. He gets a bit of snap oversteer as he goes into the braking zone, and then the car just starts to unsettle, so he has to let Batu back through. But hold on a second, then we've got Zig is into the pits. This is an early pit stop from the Polish driver here, and this is an unexpected pit stop. Now, there was damage on the rear of the car. That was sure about that, but Zig choosing to pit on lap number 6, I'm not sure about that. I think that's a bit too early, and that is a gamble. But I think what Zig's trying to do is undercut the field by taking an early pit stop. So we're going to see how that plays out. Now, remember, folks, a pit stop here at Interlagos for a tyre change alone is the best part of approximately 25 seconds. You add fuel to the mix, you're looking somewhere in the region of about 35 seconds. So it's a long pit stop here, and our drivers need to be strategic. And Zig is now coming out of the pits, albeit last as Batu and Mada are going side by side out to 9, and Mada immediately lifts out of it. But Mada has done a phenomenal job of balancing, holding drivers up versus fuel saving, and Batu has finally cleared Mada. But I think this is a case that Mada really has been the one in control of this situation, as we see that Mada on similar fuel to Batu and continue to maintain the fight as they all make their way out the final corner and up the hill for what is the 7th time of asking here. We can see that there is no overall change in terms of our race leaders, our triplet of leaders right now. Jack leading by the best part of 4 seconds here, albeit we can see that Jack is having to be wary on his fuel situation. Meanwhile, with McQueen, who is 4 seconds down and then 1.2 seconds up the road from Nightfox, McQueen slightly better on fuel, albeit tyre wear has started to come in on the front from McQueen. And then we've got Nightfox doing a very good job on fuel, albeit those front tyres are being heavily worn as he's on lap number 8. We then got a 3.4 second gap to Batu in P4, who is on that one stop. Indeed, all our drivers who are going beyond this lap, I reckon, are trying to go for the one stop. If they don't pit at the end of lap number 8, then that would concern it. But what we are seeing is that some of our drivers are really starting to settle into that one stop rhythm, and Batu seems to be the one coming alive right now. Feeling good is the Turkish driver, coming up into turn number 8 now, and we can see that they have pulled a sizable gap from Mada, who was essentially the cork in the bottle for a significant period of time, just holding everybody up. But Mada, of course, going for that one stop and driving a very conservative one stop. I think Mada may be rather tenuous on the fact they're a little bit concerned that the tyres may go at any point, as we see Yen starting to get their nose on the inside, albeit not enough into turn 10 there. The Polish driver behind doing a very good job at trying to get into that situation where they can force an overtake on Mada. But again, getting into that position to make an overtake is one thing, but in this fuel-saving style of race, particularly if you're up against a driver who's equal pace to you, it becomes one of these situations where it's after me, after you, where you don't necessarily want to be the lead driver, because then you can't slipstream off of the driver in front to get some more fuel saving in. And I think that's what Yen's struggling with right now. He wants to get past Mada. He knows he's faster than Mada, but he can't afford to save more fuel by being ahead of Mada than he can being behind. So he's got to match his pace, whereas Batu has felt, no, it's the time for me to break away, and I can get away and save the fuel in the process. So this is where it's all those mind games and all those mental calculations stack up, and that's why we haven't seen a resurgence from Halmstad since his slight off at turn 12 where he had to get the car into control, where Meissen picked up the position, and we are watching the two right now looking back from Meissen's car. Meissen in a good spot in terms of fuel, and Halmstad mirroring that by just simply staying behind and fuel saving for the time being. And you can see all our drivers having to be very disciplined right now in trying to make sure they don't do anything silly or burn the tyres up too much more. But we'll just regain a view of that fuel situation again. Our drivers now get into the final quarter of their fuel tank here, which should just be enough to get them to the end of lap number 11 or lap number 10, depending on which one they're going to pit on or whether they're going to try and undercut. But we can see how our orders have formed into these little trains now, where everybody is trying to get marginal gains on fuel on top of the other driver around them. And really, we've got a train of drivers for top 4, albeit Batu is a little bit far back, and indeed Jack has disappeared off up the road compared to everybody else. And then we have that situation where Mada is forming this massive conga line of Fittapaldis all the way from P5 down to P11, sorry, P10 actually, I think it is. It down to P10, and Zig, it should be pointed out, Zig right now has a gap of 27.4 seconds to this rear group. So what that means is, from Zig's perspective, is that he will have undercut some of these drivers by the time they come out of the pits. Zig going for that apparent 2-stop, I believe, and the only driver to gamble on the 2-stop here. So Zig is really throwing caution to the wind and will have to nail every single lap, and indeed is going for that 2-stop, where 27.2 being the fastest lap of the race as set by Zig. Only a lap ago. As we jump over to the Polish driver here, and we can see that his previous lap number 8, if we can do the maths, was that 27.2, and now a 26.9 from this man here. He is definitely on a charge on a two-stop, and let's see how it plays out for the Polishman when all is said and done. But right now our race leaders all creeping around, and to give you an idea of the sorts of laps they are doing and that comparison with Zig on that 26.9, Jack, our race leader, on a 29.7. So this lap almost 3 seconds down, as we said earlier on. That is the difference between the two strategies, but the overall race time is practically dead even between the two of them, and that's why nobody wants to fight right now in our top 4, nor in our remaining 5 to 10 places. None of these drivers want to fight one another, because they know if they do fight, and you can see Haustark and Meissen have actually traded places at some point around the previous lap, but that isn't really a major thing to shout home about, simply because of that situation of fuel. Although Haustark, I say that, is now going very, very competitive versus Madda. In fact, using a lot of fuel here to try and get past the Frenchman, going to the outside, and Madda actually defending this initially before letting Haustark take the place. And perhaps Haustark just feels that he's got enough fuel to gain a position and now go on the attack for the final lap. But this is a dangerous game to play by Haustark, because the Fittapaldi uses so much fuel when you go up beyond 8,500 RPM, but as soon as you keep it below that, that's where it fuel saves so well. And we can see that Haustark really on a mission right now, and Nightfox and Batu have traded places as well, so everybody really in a situation. In fact, one up's McQueen 46 also in this mix. Did something happen at turn number 4 that we're not aware about? So as they came down into the corner, we're looking back right now, and we can see that Batu, well, I think it's just simply a case where Batu caught up to these guys and overtook on the straight down towards turn number 1 on lap number 11. But you can see that Nightfox is now back ahead as we look at the replay there, and these guys are constantly trading places because they won't want to do this too much, as Nightfox and Batu are side by side coming into turn 11, but Batu backs out of it immediately. And this is the difficulty right now, as all these drivers are going to be coming into the pits at the end of this lap, and then we're going to see Zig, who's just going to appear out of nowhere on the two-stop, and everyone's going to say hello Zig, and Zig will say hello one-stoppers, and then he'll sort of just charge in between them, and he's got to gain as much time on them as possible as our race leader is down to the pits, and we're going to see everybody come absolutely charging into the pits here. And indeed, Haustark's going to follow up with the pack from 5th to 10th, all coming into the pits in single file. And now we just got to patiently wait for everybody to come on through. And here is Zig, ladies and gentlemen. So let's see where Zig comes out in relation, as all of our drivers really have got into the pits on only about 1 to 2 to 3% fuel. Everybody on fumes and really having to work hard for the fuel saving. And actually, hold on a second, Meissen going for a 12th lap? My goodness, Meissen has been doing the utmost fuel saving, and Zig, meanwhile, well, to give you an idea, nobody's coming out the pits at the moment in terms of our race leaders, so Zig is actually going to come out ahead of everybody who's in the pits right now. This is crazy stuff from the Polish driver. So Zig comes out, and to give you an idea where Jack is, meanwhile, Jack is only just coming to the end of the pit lane. I think Zig might have pulled an absolute blinder here, because Zig is only 21.5 seconds down on Meissen right now. Given the fact he's going to have to do another pit stop in Zig and put more fuel in, that's where he's got to really make those massive gains. But I think Zig could actually be the cork in the bottle here. That's going to, sorry, the person to release the cork in the bottle and show people the two-stop does work. But Zig right now is the man to watch, as it's all chop and change out the pits, and we can see that Nightfox, Batu and McQueen are out together, much like they were previously. And then we have got Haustark in P7, who has got away from Madda through the pit stops. So he was a little bit ahead of Madda earlier on, but do keep in mind that that gap was about 0.9 seconds, and now Haustark has opened it up through the pit stop and is starting to pull away as Meissen comes into the pits from what was the race lead, going 1 extra lap on that opening stint. So Meissen will want to feel competitive on stint number 2 of his one stop, as Zig is going to come through here, and I believe Zig is expected to pit on lap number 14 or lap number 15. So Zig is going a long way in terms of this two-stop to try and make it work, as the team at Meissen's garage are doing the work on the car right now. And looking further back, Jack right now is in competition with Meissen, I think, for this position. As we look further behind, and we see Nightfox and Batu going toe-to-toe again, and the battle commences into turn 1, and Batu just going up the inside. And I think these guys are trading places to fuel save off of one another rather than to fight one another right now. Try not to cost each other time. And I think they're all aware that Zig is a huge threat. pardon me, because Zig right now is the one driver who they're all going to be worried about because of how fast he is going around the circuit, albeit his lap times are starting to fall off because of the pressure he's putting on his tyres, but they can't afford to fight one another, because if Zig was to come out in P6, he could be on for the race win come the end of this, because Jack right now, I know Jack's got the best part of 5 seconds over our pack of 3 chasing him down, but at the same time Zig is in a completely different world in terms of pace. But remember, he does have to do that one extra pit stop compared to everybody else going to the end, and there's no points for fastest lap, there's no points for pole position in these races. The only points gathered are in the races, so you've got to make every race result count, as we see that Amada right now falling away from Halmstad, that gap opening up to 2.4 seconds, and Yen JPL instead now finding himself on the back of Mada and hunting aggressively after the Frenchman. But we will wait and see what happens as these guys make their way down towards turn number 12 once again. And well, the big question will be, when is Zig going to pit? Now, given his fuel, I reckon he is pitting at the end of lap 14 here. He is on critical fuel, and then it is going to be the best part of an 8-lap stint on a single set of tyres and on that single fuel tank. So Zig is going to do some fuel saving come at the end of his final stint. But where's he going to come out? The gap between Zig and Jack right now is 8.7 seconds. So if we count it back, folks, given the amount of time lost in the pit, we reckon that Zig is going to be coming out. I think he's going to be coming out somewhere in the region. In fact, he's going to be coming out quite a way down the order. I think he's going to be coming around in P10. He's a long way down in terms of the time, in fact, but we will wait and see. But he is on a charge, he is Zig, and he's doing everything he can. As we look back at our P3 guys right now, Batu and Nightfox doing everything to make sure not to compromise one another's time, and McQueen just sitting in this combination as we look forward from McQueen's car here, and you can just see how he's comfortably rolling with the chaps in front of him. But as we briefly take a sip of water there, one thing to consider with regards to McQueen is that whilst he's playing the patient game right now, as we go a little bit deeper into this second stint, I think it will be the question from McQueen's perspective is, when is he going to strike versus Nightfox and also Batu? As we see Zig is now into the pits on 0 fuel, so now Zig has got to fill that car up, and we'll see where he comes out and what style of charge he is going to make to the end. As meanwhile in that battle for P7, we see that Mada is ahead, and Mycin and Yen, now Yen falling into the clutches of Mycin, and Mycin gaining a position here through the toe down the straight, but Yen may come back given the fact that we've still got a long run down towards turn number 1. Does Yen go for the move out the inside? No, he respects Mycin and instead decides not to go for it, and we can see that Zig is still in the pits and he'll be coming out shortly. So Zig has got a lot to do on this final stint, but he will have a good number of laps to go hunt everybody down as he starts to make his way out the pits. So the gap between Zig and the rest of the field then, as there's no change in position right now for anyone else, Zig coming out the pits, and this is the man who everyone's going to be now sweating and fearing about, as he will be on a charge to the end. Zig is the best part of 33 seconds down our race leader. I don't think he'll make up those 33 seconds over the rest of the race, but I think given the fact he can close down 2.5 seconds a lap, so 2.5 times 8, that is approximately 20 seconds. So who is within 20 seconds of Zig right now? As we just quickly scroll through our time sheets here, it's this man right here, Storm 97's Mada. So Zig could potentially be hunting P6 come the end of this race. He is going to be on a charge right now, and we will keep you posted as Mycin is all over the back of Mada, making their way up towards turn 12 on lap number 15, and Mycin is really putting the pressure on the Frenchman. I think this is going to be another attempt at an overtaking the run to turn 1. Mycin all over the back of Mada. Mada makes Mycin go the long way round, however doesn't give the place on the inside. He wants to make Mycin work and burn a little bit more fuel, but then tucks back in. Behind them, meanwhile, we've got a 3 wide situation coming into turn 1. Zabanero on the inside, Enjoy in the middle, and PL on the left-hand side, and Zabanero goes for a move up the inside. I think that caught Enjoy by surprise there, and it means that Yen has lost 2 places for the price of 1, and Enjoy, who thought he got it done on both drivers, well, Zabanero instead makes the 2-for-1 special. What a move by Zabanero, and you can see Enjoy immediately not happy with that and going for the move down to turn 4. Now these guys, of course, fighting will cost one another time to Zig, who is already coming out of turn number 3, so you'll soon be able to see these drivers at the end of the Reproposta straight. But as they look up towards turn number 6, then I think for the time being Zabanero decides, you know what, Enjoy, you've got the place back. I've had a good laugh with you, and now you know you're going to be frightened of me on that straight, although they come into turn number 8, and Zabanero takes a quick look to the inside, but they thinks a second of it because he's not close enough, is the Greek. Now as we look back up front, we can see in the battle for P2, Batu has pulled away from Night Fox, so in the end Night Fox just hasn't got the ability to keep up with Batu, and instead Batu is starting to try to reel in Jack. But Jack, right now, 5.1 seconds ahead, in fact, 5.2 seconds ahead, and really pulling out a gap on the rest of the field. I think Jack is settling into this now after a disastrous race one. He's actually really finding a comfort zone in this second race with the fuel zone. Keep in mind, of course, Jack started on pole with the reverse grid here, but it's working out and it is going very well for the TX3 driver. As we look around here, and McQueen will now want to start making those gains on Night Fox. The gap between these two being 9/10 of a second, and McQueen will want to close that down, or at least get it down to 7/10 of a second so he can benefit from some slipstream down the straights here. Halfstart, meanwhile, in P5, clear of Mycin by the best window of 2.8 seconds, and quite a way down on McQueen. 3.5 seconds, in fact, is the gap between the German and the Italian ahead of him. And I think Halfstart here will be looking at this race as a little bit of damage limitation, and instead just hoping to bring home the P5. It would be a solid result and give him good momentum going into the second half of tonight. Mycin, meanwhile, in P6, where he's cleared Madder a phenomenal rate of knots, and Madder now 2.5 seconds down. And, well, Madder doing a good job as well of keeping their guys off, although you could see that understeered and then oversteered through turn number 8. And Madder losing the best part of 3/10 of a second there through turn number 8. And the Frenchman is struggling for grip on those tyres at the moment. It seems to be starting to fall off the cliff, that Fittapaldi, as they make their way into turn 11. And Enjoy is all over the back of Mycin. And this is not a comfortable place to be for the Storm Racing Esport driver, as we can see Enjoy all over the back of Madder, and I think a move's going to be on from Enjoy as they're making their way onto the start finish straight now to complete lap number 17. And I do not think Madder's going to fight this too hard. He might try and make Enjoy go the long way round on the outside, but I don't think we're going to see anything major here from Madder. No, they stay to the outside and then they stay on the racing line and let Enjoy through. I think they realise that Enjoy has got the momentum, and fighting here would only cost them more time than it's worth fighting for, as they make their way through the centre S's then, and now we can see that Madder slotted in behind. But Batu has pulled away, and Jack is still able to keep that gap to Batu. And Night Fox now started to come under a little bit of pressure from McQueen, and McQueen really started to build up that pace. As we were saying earlier, McQueen, I think, has been sizing up Night Fox and also Batu for some time. Don't think he's got the pace to take on Batu in this race, but definitely he's got the pace for Night Fox. You can see he's now within that 7/10 window, so he's started to benefit from the toe in the straights, and that's the important part, because he can do the additional fuel saving then and give himself the fuel to go fighting at the end of the race, which is so critical for McQueen, because he'll want to be on that podium. He won't want to come P4, and he'll know that he's got a fast charging Halfstart behind, who's only 2.8 seconds behind. So when the fighting occurs, he can't afford for that fighting to cost him too much time, because those Halfstart may be within a shot of that P4, if not that P3 as well, as all of our drivers make their way back up the hill to complete lap number 18. And in terms of our driver who we're expecting to come charging up through the field here, Zig. Well, Zig has not been catching up at the rate of knots we perhaps expected. The last lap being a 27.3. Perhaps it's a bridge too far for Zig, or he just can't quite get those lap syncs. That gap to Yen is currently 9.3 seconds, and Zig just not able to close it down. It seems like the one stop has worked out in the end. We were hoping for it to work out in his favour, but we can see that Enjoy, well, hold on a second, Madder has fallen a very long way down the order here. What has happened to the French driver as they went into turn 1? So Madder here losing a lot of time to Enjoy. We saw that Enjoy got past previously, but Madder, in the end, as they came along the start finish straight there, so holding to the middle of the circuit and let Zabanero through. And Madder really just not got the pace right now, but he's trying to stay in this pack of 4 cars. But we can see that Enjoy already breaking away, as is Zabanero a little bit. And then you've got Yen is all over the back of Madder and probably hoping, now what do I have to do to get past the Frenchman? Well, Yen, you got to find a way past either of the slipstream or do it into a corner here. And for your sake, I think you're going to want to do it on the straights here, just because you don't want to use that extra fuel. As Madder goes very wide with snap oversteer out of turn 8 there. Oh, that is a disaster for Madder. And now that has put it it from good to bad to worse, but Mada was able to catch it and has still got Yen ahead of him to pull him along. But we can see now how Zig is catching up to these two, and Zig is 6.7 seconds back and should be within striking distance within the next 3 laps to gain those places. But Zig has got a long way to go to catch up to these guys, as meanwhile we can see that Batu not closing up the gap to Jack quickly enough. 5.1 seconds. That gap has come down by 3 tenths over lap number 19, but Night Fox right now in P3 doing a very good job of holding on to P3 and pulling away a little bit from McQueen. It's constant chop and change from McQueen and Night Fox. The gap opening up to a second, but I think McQueen will be trying to come back in the remaining 3 laps. And then behind them, of course, Mycin, who, having got up to this position so far, in fact, he's got past Halbstart. My apologies, folks. Halbstart has had a disaster, or something's gone wrong for Halbstart, because he's just disappeared behind Mycin. We didn't get to see that. What was the previous lap from Halbstart? A 29.9 versus Mycin. What was Mycin able to achieve? A 28.6. Well, Halbstark's definitely made an error somewhere, or worried about fuel, because Mycin is just charging up through the order. And is Halbstark critical of fuel? Halbstark is critical of fuel. That's what's gone wrong here, folks. Halbstark is having to do additional fuel saving. It is losing time arm over leaf in the fact that it's just not working out for the German, and it's gone from a good place to now a very dangerous place in the fact he's got less than 25% fuel, and he's still got the best part of 2 laps to go. That car is going to need to be short shifted all the way home, whereas Mycin has got the fuel to go on the attack if he can get close enough versus McQueen versus Night Fox. Of course, that battle for P3 is something else in its own entirety, as we can see that Night Fox losing out in the run uphill towards the start finish line to go on to lap number 21. I think that's where the fuel saving techniques are different between the 2 drivers, and McQueen right now getting into that striking zone, and McQueen getting a lot of understeer under braking there into turn 1. What with the dirty air of Night Fox's car, and I think McQueen at one point there was probably thinking, I'm not going to hit Night Fox, surely this car's going away from me, but it hasn't happened, and Night Fox going wide out of turn 3. This could be the opportunity for McQueen to start to close up, albeit McQueen will need to get used to that dirty air once again once they get within that 7.5 tenth zone. Well, I think Halbstark is safe from Enjoy, who is 4.1 seconds back. He could afford to trade off a second a lap, could Halbstark versus Enjoy. And meanwhile, Zabanero, who's in P8, well, he's closing up to Enjoy a little bit right now. He's closing that gap down, the Greek driver, and he's pulled away from Yen, who in turn has pulled away from Mada, who's P10. And we can see in the rear view camera, Ziggy coming up behind Mada right now, and the gap between the two of them, 2.6 seconds, and Ziggy has got 2 laps to go, well, 1.5 laps to go. He is within that striking distance. But meanwhile, the big battle, which a lot of people are probably wondering about, I am indeed, is Night Fox versus McQueen versus Mycin, where you can see Mycin has got very close to the back of Queen. We have got 1 more lap to go coming out of the run of this corner, and who is going to be on the final step of the podium as McQueen gets very sideways coming out of turn 12, and I think that's going to leave him vulnerable to Mycin, who's all over the back of McQueen as they go onto the straight. You can see McQueen trying to squeeze Mycin and block him. He's done it this time, but Mycin looking up the inside here. It's going to be a drag race into turn 1. It's a battle on the brakes, and Mycin isn't quite able to get all the way along, but then again he goes to the cut back at 2 at the centre S, and now he finds himself on the outside of turn 3. He's all the way alongside McQueen versus Mycin. The drag race continues. They head down towards turn number 4. Night Fox will be looking back thinking, good, keep fighting, but I think Mycin's going down unless McQueen goes very late on the brakes here, which he does. There's a little bit of contact, and well, McQueen gets some snap oversteer, and Mycin has got it done. What a brave move to stay on the outside into turn 4, and Mycin is up to P4 as a result, and now has got half a lap to close down Night Fox. And meanwhile, further back, it should be pointed out that Zabanero is catching Enjoy at a phenomenal rate of knots and is all over the back of him. And well, Mada has been passed by Ziggy into turn 4. That we are here in trackside, but it's all kicking off as we can see that Enjoy being attacked by Zabanero, and Zabanero will go for that move on the start finish line, I reckon. But one person who hasn't had to fight hard in this one, in fact it's been a run all the way to the end from start to finish in first, is TX3's Jack, who is going to bring home a race win in race number 2 tonight. A phenomenal drive by the TX3 driver, and he comes on in first place. The best part of 3.5 seconds ahead of Batu, who rose all the way out to P2. Night Fox, however, is going to hold off at the end versus Mycin. Mycin just missing out on the podium, and McQueen rounded off our top 5. Halmstock bringing the car home after nursing the fuel considerably in P6, followed by Enjoy just pipping Zabadero to the line in the end. Yen J in P9, and it's Zig in P10, and Madov rounding up our finishing drivers with 2 retirements in P11. Our 2 retirees, of course, being Voito and INS Felix. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our race winner, TX3 Jack. What a phenomenal race number 2. It all came together right at the end in terms of the strategy. But here are your results, subject to any insurance inquiries, of course. First place going to TX3 Jack, leading it from start to finish. Second place, WSR Batu, and Night Fox from Storm in P3. Fourth going to Mycin, who just missed out on the podium there by the smallest of margins, only 2 tenths. And McQueen rounding off our top 5, not able to hold off the fast charging Mycin in the end. Our fastest lap going to ART's Zig, a 126.999 on a lap number 9. But that one stop not working out for Zig this time around. But remember, he did have that damage and a difficult start to the race. Perhaps he can make the 2-stop work in race number 4. But now we've got a 10-minute break, so I'm going to be entering in our race results for race number 2. And after we've had our 10-minute break, we will, of course, be back with race number 3. But we have to start off, before we do race number 3, with quali session number 2, which is a 5-minute qualifying session, a lot faster and a lot more intense. So we will be back in action at 7 minutes past the hour. So I'm going to mute my microphone for a brief period of time, folks, but I will be back very shortly. Alrighty folks, we are back. Apologies about that. We had to quickly hop away just to get ourselves a refill of our water flask because we've got plenty more racing to commentate on, and also just to stretch the old legs there. But also it's a good opportunity for yourselves to go grab yourself some additional refreshments. But we have still got plenty more to come. We've got 5 minutes until we resume the second half of tonight's proceedings. Now you're probably wondering at this point, wait, there's more? Yes, there is more. We have got 3 more sessions to go. Qualifying number 2, which is a 5-minute qualifying session. And then we've got race number 3, which is a 7-lap sprint, much like race number 1. The grid order being determined by the results of qualifying number 2. And then we've got the final feature-length race of the evening. That is race number 4, another 22-lap race. It's the reverse grid of the finishing positions of race number 3, and that is the final race of this evening. But even after that, do stick around because we may have the opportunity to get in 1 or 2 post-race interviews with some of our drivers and get their insights onto how they felt they did tonight. Now, you're probably thinking at this point, well, why is it the second qualifying session is much shorter than the first qualifying session? Well, think about it this way. In our qualifying 1, our drivers had 15 minutes to set their best possible lap. 15 minutes is a long time here, with an average lap time of under 1.5 minutes. That means you could get the best part of, say, 6 flying laps in. When you've got a 5-minute qualifying session, so that's a third of the session of qualifying 1, you're only going to get 2 laps in maximum. And that means there's all the pressure on you as a driver to nail your lap the first time around, to get yourself that space on the circuit, to not trip over another driver. And what that can mean is that some drivers who love to have the best part of 10 minutes to set themselves up to get a good qualifying lap in, they no longer have that comfort. And we do that because it changes up our orders for the subsequent races. It throws additional variables into the mix, and sometimes you'll see a driver who qualified right at the back in qualifying session 1 suddenly appear up towards the top of qualifying session 2, not because they're quote-unquote the fastest 1-lap pace driver, but because they could put in a good lap on their first lap, whereas everybody else might have struggled to. So that's something to look forward to in the coming minutes. Outside of that, however, on top of that, race number 3, of course, will throw things into the mix once again because we've got another sprint and then having that long endurance race. And I think all of our drivers will once again want to settle in for race number 4 to do their best. But everybody's just parked in the pits right now. Nobody's out on circuit. Everyone's just having that good old comfort break with 3 minutes to go. But in terms of the standings so far as to how everybody's doing, our driver who is leading right now in terms of to gain the most points out of tonight's races is, as we spectate back on the field, our first place driver so far tonight overall, based on the results we've had in races 1 and 2, is Mycin. Mycin having put in a very good set of results, the Polish driver representing KRT. First place in race number 1 and 4th place in race number 2, giving him the best finishing score so far. But remember, we've got 2 races to go. And then in second, we're only going to do our top 5 here. We've then got Batu, the Turkish driver, who is closely hunting down Mycin. Batu picking up a 3rd place in race number 1 and a 2nd place in race number 2. Batu doing a very good job of keeping Mycin honest here, is the Turkish driver for the WSR team. Third then, we have got, and you would think perhaps this would be the driver, but it's consistency paying for. It is Storm's Night Fox, who has done a very solid job, currently holding on to, well, sorry, not my apologies, it's not Storm's Night Fox. They're P5, my goodness, I can't read numbers properly sometimes. But we have then got Enjoy, the Polish driver here, who is currently 3rd in our overall ranking from tonight's races, having picked up that 2nd place in race number 1 and 7th place in race number 2. We then just had a time of day alteration, so that way we move over to the qualifying session and then the 7-lap sprint. And hopefully we should see the return of Wojto, the Polish driver who retired from race number 2 due to the stuck bug on the grid. Felix will not be returning tonight, as we've not been able to get Felix off the line. We're keeping Wojto in here for at least one more race because of the fact he was able to take part in race number 1. But as all of our drivers begin to ready up now, they're getting ready to go for the next qualifying session. Our driver who's currently 4th in the overall standings from tonight, funny enough, is this man right here, the British driver of TX3, Jack. The TX3 driver having picked up that 12th place in race number 1, and then that 12th place in race number 1, and then that 1st place in race number 2. So 2 completely polar opposite finishing positions, giving him a good score. But then again, he has been very closely pursued by the one we were saying earlier, the French driver of Night Fox, who is currently sat on that P5 right now, having picked up a 8th place in race number 1 and a 3rd place in race number 2. For just a couple more drivers to ready up, and we should be underway of qualifying any moment now within the next minute, as Halbstart gives everybody the warning that we are going to be a go, go, go in a very short order. And I just want to quickly say thank you to the compliments from Angelo PL, who has supported ATR and KRT tonight. Thank you for the feedback on the commentary, and it sounds like you're enjoying yourself, Jacob, as is 666 Lucifer, who is cheering on Night Fox. And to Crow Snipes in the chat, is this game good? Yep, GT Sport is fantastic. It's one of the best racing games you can get currently out there on the market, particularly for PlayStation 4. As we get qualifying number 2 underway. I'm jumping all numbers here. Who's going to be on pole by the end of the 5 minutes? Let's find out. So, of course, all of our drivers will be itching to get out onto the field as quickly as possible here. With the fact there are only 5 minutes, literally every second counts, as we can see that Enjoy will be the first driver out there onto the circuit. So as Enjoy makes their way through the pit exit here and out onto the Repo Aposta straight, we're going to see what they're able to achieve. And, of course, they'll be the one who leads the field around. Now, what do you do in this qualifying situation, given the fact you've got a limited amount of time? Well, you've got to take 1 or 2 approaches. Now, what I suspect Enjoy is going to do, Enjoy knows they're one of the fastest drivers on the field based on qualifying 1 on a single lap pace. Enjoy is literally going to attack the circuit from the start of this qualifying session and essentially try to race around the circuit to pull away from everybody. The idea being that if Enjoy is able to achieve this, then they get away from everybody, and the net result would then be that they're able to get themselves on pole. And meanwhile, if we flick around for some of our other drivers here, as we bring all of our data back up on screen there. Halbstart, meanwhile, might be thinking to himself, right, I'm sandwiched between Enjoy and I've got Batu fast up behind me. Do I stay in this position or do I pull out the way? Well, Halbstart's going to commit, I think, and instead it's Batu who has tried to pull a little bit of space. You can see all the drivers now giving each other a little bit of room up into the final corner, using the run to turn 12 there to space things out. But one driver who's not spacing things out is Enjoy, and we're going to ride on board with the Polish driver for his opening flying lap in this session as we look forward from the front bumper of his car. So as he comes across the timing line then, 178 miles an hour he'll be breaking down from into turn number 1, coming down into first gear, bringing the car aggressively down through its gearbox, and now snapping over the centre rest there into turn 3, up into third gear, getting a little bit of understeer on the exit of turn 3 there, but keeping it under control nicely as he comes out of the corner exit, and now charging down towards turn number 4, braking at approximately 80 metres to the corner, and coming down into second gear, really snapping it down the gearbox before getting on the power and absolutely straight lining the steer into the exit curve of 4, through 5 nice and simple, now up the hill into turn 6. He's going to be braking at approximately that 50 metre board, aggressively turning that car in and maintaining as much apex speed as possible, using a quick snap shift to second, back up to third to rotate the car in even more, and gets a nasty pull of oversteer under braking with that downshift there to first gear, and that has cost Enjoy the best part of 1.5 attempts into the apex of turn number 8. But as he comes up into turn 10 now, he gets turn 10 very collected by comparison. And it's worked out very nicely for Enjoy there as he now makes his way through 11 and down towards turn number 12. Although this is not going to be the perfect lap for the Polish driver. And here's that element I was talking about earlier, folks, the pressure of only having 2, perhaps even a 3rd flying lap if you're fortunate, which Enjoy will be, to get the best possible time. It's a complete dynamic switch, and it is something that completely changes your mindset as all our drivers are making their way around right now. Enjoy coming across the line, but takes to the racing line where 26.1 does Halbstart respond. It's a 27.1 from Halbstart. Batu already a 25.6 from Batu. That is immense. That is a breaker in terms of the qualifying laps we have seen so far. 5 tenths faster than Enjoy, who's P2. McQueen with a 1:26.2 up to provisional P3. Only 7 thousandths clear Zabanero on a 26.262 right now. And then it's Zig in P5, followed by Mycin in P6 and Yenjay in P7. As more times coming in, Jack only setting a 1:33.9 in last currently, but we believe that was more of a warm-up lap than anything else, as we see Yenjay not able to really get too much out of the opening stint, although this lap, to be fair, has been very similar to what he set in qualifying 1, so it's a good opener, and he's going to get one more lap in after this, we feel, as we can see that Voito on a 26.8 as well, so starting to get back into things. Voito seems to be able to take part, which is great to see for the Polish driver here, the PRT driver, who'll be looking to do his utmost in the final 2 races to arrest the decline of race number 2. Halmstad dropping all the way down the order, though. He needs to get into those 26s, and he's already pushing into those 26s right now with what is 5 tenths up after sector 2. This is looking to be a 26.5 or a 26.6. He goes up the hill then, and will he stay over to the left or will he cut to the right as he goes onto our timing line? I reckon he's going to go to left. Surely he's got to go to left because this is a huge improvement. No, he goes to the right instead. It's a 26.3 from Halmstad. He thinks there's a 25 out there, surely, if he's going to literally marginalise it that much. As Zig improves to a 26.3 also. Everybody getting into those low 26s, but Batu on a 25.6 right now, still 3.5 tenths ahead of Enjoy, who's not in those 25s yet. And we can see all our drivers coming through, and Jack will not be getting another lap as Madder has gone off, and Jack comes to the end of his qualifying lap then. And what is the British driver going to be able to do? It's the only flying lap he's going to get. It's a 1:26.5, so it's a good lap from Jack, putting in provisional P9 though, but I think he's beaten he's beaten Madder definitely, because Madder has gone off somewhere, but we see that Nightfox right now, the fastest driver of anybody in Sector 1 on a 26.8 though, so Sector 1's good, it's just the rest of the lap that needs touching up as Madder just rolls down the hill ahead of turn number 6. And Nightfox coming up here now, and as he makes his way through here, we can see that really it's in the Sector 2 where Nightfox just seems to not have the pace compared to the other qualifiers around him. Now, meanwhile, up front, it should be pointed out that Halmstad is... No, not Halmstad, sorry. I believe that is... Yeah, that's Enjoy coming to the end of his his final flying lap right now. What can Enjoy improve to? Will this be enough to challenge Batu? I don't think it is. It's not an improvement. Halmstad, meanwhile, does not improve. Batu does not improve either. What about Zab? He improves to a 26.2, putting in provisional P3. Zig improves to a 26.299, putting him back up to 5th. Anybody else coming through? Mycin with a 26.1, putting him onto the second row in P3. Voito with a 26.6. And then the last of our drivers coming through right now is Nightfox, a 26.6, promoting them back up to P10. A great job done there by Nightfox to battle back up. But pole position, ladies and gentlemen, has gone to WSR's Batu, the only driver to get into the 25s in this round. The fastest lap we've seen all evening, a 25.647. Well, Enjoy and Mycin will not have it all their own way going into race number 3, as we're going to pan over to it now. So panning down to the grid then, it will be Batu on your left, Enjoy on your right, Mycin behind, and Zabanero in P4. But look out for Zig in P6, who has been looking increasingly strong over the course of each race. And what can Voito do now they've had a chance to take part in P11? And it's lights out and away we go. And Batu stalling at the start a little bit there, you can see. But all of our drivers being able to pull away nice and clear. And Enjoy immediately going on the offensive versus Batu. A bit of door rubbing into turn 1. And you can see Mycin tucking into the back of Batu there as they all make their way side by side through turns at 1, 2 and 3. And Enjoy has got the move done initially. But behind, Mycin with the contact on Batu's rear has cost him a bit of momentum. And we can see that Zabanero being attacked relentlessly by McQueen. But meanwhile, our leader is Enjoy, who's pulling away a little bit already on Batu as we see Zabanero going deep into turn 4. There was a little bit of contact off the back of McQueen's car. McQueen pulls out of it, and that means Zig is able to go up the inside. It will now be the outside for turn 6. They're 3 wide in the rear of your picture in the battle for P8. Voito in the lead of that battle for P8, and I think Voito has had the best gains of anybody on the opening lap so far, and McQueen having to go defensive into turn 8 versus Zig. Zig all over the back of him right now as we look back from McQueen's car here, and you can see that McQueen is being pressured by a huge margin, and up the inside goes Zig. He's not able to get close enough inside as Jack goes to the move on Voito for P8, and Voito is still there, but he's pulled out of it into turn 11. So Jack gaining P8 back from Voito, but Voito made a huge amount of gains on the opening lap as they all come into turn 12 and now start to charge their way up the hill, all line astern, and now it's a case of the battle on the slipstream, although we can see that Madder has had a disastrous start. So as they come out of the final corner then to start lap number 2, it is Enjoy ahead of Batu by 2.5 tenths. Then it is Mycin in P3, Zabanero in P4, McQueen in P5, Zig in P6, battling with McQueen, and then it is Halstark in P7 ahead of his teammate Jack once again. Storm Nightfox in P9, P10, he's battling with Voito, but Voito holds on to P9, so Voito in P9 for the time being, Nightfox in P10, Yen in P11, and then Madder in P12. But as we look back up the front, we can see that Enjoy right now being hounded by Batu, and I think he's hoping that Mycin can get in the mix here, because if Mycin could get into this fight for the lead, then the two teammates could work together to shut Batu out and finish P1 and P2 as Enjoy is having to go defensive up into turn number 6 for the second time of asking. Behind them, however, this battle for P5 is ongoing, and Zig right now providing a cork in the bottle scenario as we can see that McQueen goes to the inside, there's contact, and McQueen is forced onto the grass, and I think Zig flashes his lights there to apologise or to say, look, it wasn't intentional pushing you in, but McQueen gains the place, although Zig is still flashing his lights. I think what Zig's trying to say is you need to give me back the place. So I think Zig is going to have to stop flashing his lights now and just accept that McQueen isn't going to give it back immediately, and instead he's going to have to find a way back past down the circuit, or unless McQueen lets him through on the straight, of course, to avoid losing any time. But you can see Halmstock got a little tap off the back of Jack as, oh, Zig has gone charging up the hill. He's gone completely off, and well, he's managed to get back on circuit, but he's lost 2 places. Jack's going to come through as well, and that means we have now seen Zig lose even more places coming out of turn 12. This is a disaster for the Polish driver as he has to try and find a way. They're 4 wide. Hold on a sec. Is that 4? No, it's 3 wide up into turn 1, and it is Zig who finds himself having to go onto the outside there. Jack on the inside and Voito in the middle, and Voito still battling with Zig for P8, and I think Voito has got it done for the time being as they all make their way down towards turn 4 once again. And in that battle for P5 right now, well, you can see that it's 3 wide into turn 4 and Jack backs out of it, and McQueen is under huge pressure as the Italian versus the TX3 team of Jack and Halmstock. Halmstock being the lead driver in that battle right now, and not letting McQueen rest at all. And I think Jack wants to try and pounce and get one up on his teammate at the same time, but Jack's got to keep his cool here and realise that there's more to gain by expecting your teammate to get the job done first and then follow through with him, because if he puts too much pressure on his teammate, there could be curtains for the pair of them as they're all making their way up towards turn 10. And we've got 2 packs forming, the battle for P5, which is literally everybody from P5 to last, and then we've got the battle for what is the lead right now, where Enjoy is leading this ahead of Batu and Mycin, and Zabanero is in the rear of this battle, just keeping his foot in the door and seeing what he can do. But look back from McQueen's car right now, and you can see this huge train of cars as they all make their way up to the timeline to start lap number 4. And I think surely something's got to give soon. Somebody has got to make an error. And will Halmstock go for the move on McQueen this time? He snaps out to the inside down into turn 1. Halmstock making his intentions clear, and I think McQueen decides not to fight this. I think he realises that if he keeps fighting, as Halmstock goes wide onto the grass there. Now, was there contact between the two of them? Because Halmstock has lost on, and oh no! And there's been huge contact into turn 3, and Jack is in to the wall. What on earth has happened there? Let's find out. So we're going to ride on board with Jack here and look forward. So as he comes up into turn 1, watch for how Halmstock gets alongside McQueen. But was there contact between the two of them? It looks like there might have been a little bit of contact, or Halmstock went deep. But then Jack gets caught up against Halmstock and then gets a little bit of a tail slapper. And that is what sets it off effectively. And then everybody coming through behind has to react to Jack. And I think some of the drivers behind may have just made some contact with him. But Jack is out of this race by the looks of things. They're trying to get the car reset at the moment. They've got it reset in the end. And that was a disastrous dangerous moment there between the two TX3 drivers. I really think that Jack's going to bounce back once again in the final race of tonight. But focusing back on the here and now and what's happening, enjoying a 5-10 lead over the moment over Batu, with Mycin chasing after him, and Zabanero really not able to keep in this too much. The gap between Zabanero and our top three open up to 1.3 seconds at the moment. But I think the Greek driver will be happy with this P4. He'll feel as though the win or the podium was within arm's reach, and if they fight too much, he could go for it. But now, looking back at this battle for P5, we could see that Voito has dropped back a little bit from the top three in this battle for P5, and Zig goes for a very, very late move there on a house start. But look at him, he's made it work, and house start was caught unaware by it. And as they make their way now down towards turn number 4, will Halmstad come back at the Polish driver? Because this is giving McQueen every opportunity to break away and consolidate that top 5, as Voito is looking for the move up the inside on Halmstad. He goes for it, as well does Voito. And does he get it done, the PRT driver? He does. But Halmstad goes to the cutback out of 4, up into 5, and he's got the momentum here. But Voito will still be along his side and will be up the inside into turn number 6. And as they go through, Voito holds it off here. And what a brilliant move by Voito this in order to hold up the position. And to play that back for you folks, this was a huge move by Voito. No, sorry, not by Voito, by Zig. Watch this down the inside. He is literally going to cut on the inside at the last possible moment of the house. He snaps it to the inside, and that is how you get it done into turn 1. That was a phenomenal move, very late on the brakes and daring all the same. And Voito capitalising on Halmstad's loss of momentum. Now behind, of course, you do have to wonder, will Night Fox notice they're able to catch up to this? As we note, they are 1.3 seconds ahead of Yenjay, who's not able to catch up right now, and Halmstad has lost some momentum, albeit he will be trying to come back now at Voito onto lap number 6 with 2 laps to go. As we can see, this battle for P5 is continuing, and I think it is going to go down to the wire all the way to the end, and Zig is putting huge pressure on McQueen right now. McQueen must be thinking to himself, oh, come on, give me a break. I've done everything I can to hold on to this position. As we can see that Batu has got back ahead of Enjoy, so we didn't get to see what happened there on camera, folks. We are just going to take a quick look back and see if Batu got it done perhaps into turn number 1 as they made their way up here. Did Batu get it done into the first corner? No, so that must have been into turn number 4 on lap number 6. That's where, sorry, into turn number 1 on lap number 6. That's where Batu would have got it done, not on lap number 5. So that's where that's happened, but we're unfortunate to have missed it. But Zig is past McQueen. He's finally got it done, as we just take a look back and see if we're able to catch that. And Zig got it done on the inside into turn number 4 there. We just called it on the left-hand side of the camera. So that's how Zig's now up into P5, and McQueen will be dropping down as Voito has already got past him. Voito up the inside into turn 10, a place we haven't seen too many overtakes tonight, but Voito's got it done. And now McQueen under huge pressure from Halmstad, who takes a wide line for 11 to get the momentum up into 12 here. I think Halmstad realises he can go for this. And look in the rear of your picture, you can see Night Fox, although I say that, Night Fox commentators curse applying a massive amount of oversteer there and has to take off to the grass as Jack is parking up in the pits. They're boxing the car for this race, and Night Fox struggling to get that car reset. As onto the final lap comes our race leader, Batu, who is currently leading by 1.2 seconds. I think the move they must have made on Mycin was enough to cut Mycin's momentum, because Mycin is not coming back. And in fact, we can see that Zabanero is catching up to the 2 Polish drivers right now, and of course the KRT drivers will not want to trip over one another over the course of this race. They'll want to work together to complete this, but can Zabanero throw a spanner in the works on the last lap? We will wait and find out, as we can see that Halmstad has still not found a way past McQueen. He's struggling to get one up on the Italian driver. The Italian just has an answer for whatever the German's able to pass it in right now, but there's still half a lap to go, and if anyone's going to find a move on the last lap, it's Halmstad, you can be sure on it. As they make their way up into turn 8, no move from Halmstad so far. He's got to plan this one, because he knows McQueen may come back at him on the start-finish straight if he's too close for comfort. But as they all make their way through the middle part of Sector 2 now, Halmstad looks to the inside for turn 10, and he's going for his move here. McQueen squeezes him tight to the apex and holds on the outside, and Halmstad gives up the position, but he will potentially come back. But right now, in the drag race to the line, it will be Batu who brings home the win in race number 3 by the window of 1.1 seconds ahead of Mycin, who in the end comes home in P2 and Enjoy P3, Zabanera in P4 and P5 versus P6. Who will it be? It's going to be side by side to the line. It's a drag race and Zig picks up the win. And what about for P7? It's Halmstock. Halmstock does it in the drag race. A one up McQueen finishes P8, Yen P9, Night Fox comes home in P10. The Storm guys not having a good race 3, and Madder right now making his way around and will be coming home in P11. But Halmstock hipping McQueen to the line for P7 right at the end there, and now we just ride with Madder as they make their way home. And I believe Jack is coming across the line 2 laps down, but finishing the race all the same. Good spirit there from Jack coming home in P12. And really it's just now for Madder to complete our order. But what a brilliant race this has been. So give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as the Storm driver comes out of the final proper corner and makes their way up the hill now. The spirit lives on, even though it hasn't been the best of races for Madder. They come home in P11 and they'll know that they're starting on the front row for race number 4, and it could be important and they could get a solid result all the same. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our race winner, Batu, picking up the win for Team WSR from Turkey. What a great way to kick off the second half of tonight's races. Race number 3 having so much drama, so much action. But here are your race results, subject to any steward's decisions, of course. Batu with the win, 1.1 seconds clear of Mycin, and Enjoy in P3. Enjoy not able to make that conversion to the win, stay as a win in the end, and Batu coming back hard and fast. Zabanero, P4, and Zig picking up a P5. Zig doing those very bold moves, and really so far has been the one for the boldest of overtakes. Fastest lap going to Zabanero on lap number 5, a 1:26.832. As we now get ready for race number 4, the final one of tonight. And I think some of our drivers are just getting a little bit itchy, a little bit restless down the paddock right now. They know there's one more race to go. And that race will be coming right at them shortly and sweetly. Tiredness is going to be settling in. Some of our drivers are asking for a very quick break. Remember, folks, whilst it's 10:30 in the evening, my time here, a lot of these drivers are on the European continent, so for them it's 11:30 at night right now. Tiredness will be kicking in. They've got the longest race of tonight now coming up, the 22-lapper feature race, the one with all the strategy where you've got a fuel save, manage the tyres, and now the legs are going to be killing them. The arms are going to be tired. The eyes will want to close. Who is going to be our winner in the final race? Well, it could be anyone right now. But whilst we have got this opportunity, we're going to quickly input the race results from race number 3 into our spreadsheet. So we will be starting in 5 minutes time. Everybody is being asked to ready up, but we'll be starting in 5 minutes. So everybody's been given just an additional comfort break, and then we'll be good to go to wrap up. But really, I think the story of that race, the story of race number 3, there are three stories to be told in that one. The arrival of Batu in terms of delivering the pace and being able to take the fight to the PRT drivers. Sorry, not PRT drivers. To the KRT drivers of Mycin and Enjoy. Because they looked dominant in the opening race one, whereas Batu has really come alive as the evening has gone on. And Batu picking up the win. That's the first story to tell. The second one is the very close battle between, he's currently not on the field, but the close battle between Zig and McQueen, where Zig in the end got the upper hand with some absolutely daring overtakes from Zig. And then last but not least, what has been a very difficult evening for TX3 Chat, in the fact that in race number 1 it all went wrong and he's had to start. Also, he finished right at the back, but he starts at the front for race number 2 and picks up the win, and it's happened again in race number 3. A difficult race, finishing at the back, and now we'll be starting right at the front for race number 4. And of course, it's the worst way for it to happen when you do have an incident with your teammate, but I'm sure himself and Alstart will calm things down afterwards. They'll have their debrief, and it will all be good between the pair of them. I can tell you folks, I've been there myself with regards to incidents with teammates. It's not a nice place to be, because you're friends outside of racing, but of course when you get out of that circuit, it's a flash of blood to the head. You just want to absolutely kick and scream and shout at the person, only to then realise, oh, I'm actually going to kick and shout at my teammate, and it's the last thing you want to do. Indeed, a good old bit of Monty Python there, Piosco, as we also say hello to Gabu and Zach Woodhead in the chat. But one more race to go. In the next couple of minutes, we'll be underway with a 22 lap to the end. And we will see who is going to be our final race winner of tonight. I say with most of the instances or situations I think they're all going to end up being classified as racing incidents. It's been very fair racing throughout. There's been some near misses, there's been some near knuckle moments, but for the most part it has been incredibly clean and it's been so intense throughout. And that's what we love to see at GT Fusion. That's what it's all about, that racing, competitive, fair play spirit. And it has been one heck of a night so far. Will be honest with you though, folks, I don't think I'm going to have any voice left by the end of race number 4. Blame these guys, they're too good at racing. As we're just waiting now for the clock to count down, we've got less than half a minute to go until we get onto race number 4. And let's see how it plays out. Now, in terms of our leader at the moment in the ranking following tonight's races, so if things are sat as they currently stood at the end of race number 3, who would gain the most points from tonight? It would now be Batu, who is in first place in terms of pointage and is being trailed closely by the combination of Mycin and Enjoy. So Batu now starting to take that little lead with the results, but again, it could all chop and change come the end of this one. And remember, Batu will now start all the way at the back and will have to fight his way through the field, as will Enjoy and Mycin. There'll only be one place up ahead of him each, but at the same time, Batu will have it all to do. He'll have to find a way past everybody to get the best possible result. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for race number 4. It is go, go, go. Who will be our final race winner for tonight? So as we pan down to the grid, it's TX3's Jack on the left-hand side. Meanwhile, it is Storm's Madder on the right, Night Fox behind, and Yenjay behind behind Madder. But who will come out on top by the end of it? It's anybody's guess. And it's lights out and away we go. A quick change of light state and Jack being caught out by it significantly there and stalling on the start, and Madder immediately cut into the middle and blocking Nightfox, but goes to the move early, does Madder, into turn 1, and Jack finds himself right on the outside up into 2, which will give him a really tight apex line for 2 where he can go defensive versus Nightfox. But as we see all of our drives going through here, it's worth noting that already Voito up into P6, charging up there, and Zig up into P8 as they all come charging down towards turn number 1, and it is Jack up the inside of Madder here and closing the door on Madder before they can even try and make a cutback, and Madder goes out onto the AstroTurf slightly and gets a bit of snap oversteer as there is a change of position there. And further down the order we can see that Halstark is finding himself sandwiched between multiple drivers, and Enjoy has gained the most out of our back runners right now as Zabanero is trying to get past Halstark as they all charge up towards turn number 8, and Zabanero goes up the inside of Halstark here, but Halstark's got the inside and returning to turn 9, and they're going to side by side all the way through 9 up into 10, and I think Halstark has got it covered for the time in. But does Zabanero come back? He does. It's Zabanero actually goes all the way in there and makes a double move and picks off Yenjay as well, and that enables Halstark to get past Yenjay. So Zabanero is the man on a charge right now as they all make their way out of the final corner. Remember folks, all 4 races tonight are worth the same points, so every point matters tonight as Jack makes his way up the hill to complete our racing order after lap number 1. So it is TX3's Jack leading by 1.3 seconds ahead of Nightfox, followed by Madder and Nightfox working together here, and Nightfox already passed his teammate McQueen in P4 going for the move on the inside of Madder, but can't quite make it stick at the moment. Then it is Voito in P5, Zig in P6, Zabanero in P7, Halstark in P8, Yenjay in P9, Batu has gained the most out of the guys who started on the back 2 rows, Enjoy in P11 and Mycin in P12. And the guys from KRT are really struggling right now by comparison with Batu, perhaps using Batu as a battering ram to make the way through the field as we see Nightfox and Madder coming to blows here. And I think Nightfox is actually costing Madder time now, and McQueen and Zig, meanwhile, you can see behind McQueen having to defend ferociously to the inside up the hill into 6 and 7, and Zig really wants through and wants the French drivers to go faster, because if we look back from Nightfox's car right now, look at that train of Fittapaldis as they're all coming out of turn number 9 and up into 10. None of them are able to find a way through. Although I say that, you can see Zig going for the move on, well, what looks to be McQueen, and Zig has got it done as we're looking back from Madder's car right now. Zig is on a mission and is absolutely flying, and I think Zig will once again be going for the 2-stop here, knowing that it didn't quite work out in race number 1, but there was damage involved in a major incident, and Zabanero losing out on the outside there of turn 12 versus Voito, who's holding off the Greek for the time being. But meanwhile, even further back, we can see that the battle between Batu and Yenjay proceeds onwards, and Batu has got the move done. And Batu up into P9 as meanwhile back in the run down towards turn number 1 we can see it's 2 sets of 3 wide. Nightfox holding off Storm's Madder and also Zig trying to go for a double move there and couldn't make any of it count, and Voito having to hold off Zabanero and McQueen, and you could see that Voito up into P5, and well, those guys have lost so much momentum. And back up in front we can see that Zig going for the double move on Nightfox and Madder, and he's got it done. Where on earth did that come from? Let's find out. So we're going to ride on board here with Zig. Now watch this overspeed. He's already got Madder on his right hand side here, and Nightfox going a little bit wide off of turn 3, and Zig, the man on a mission and the master of the brakes here, gets a double move done into turn 4. The Polish driver is on a charge right now, but surely this must mean he's on a 2-stop unless he suddenly goes into the ultimate fuel saving mode come the end of this lap, because surely there's not enough fuel in that car now to go 11 laps. As we can see that Zabanero battling with Voito once again into turn 10, and it's going to be Voito who holds off the Greek right now, but they're so close to one another, are these two. There's contact imminent. Oh, and there's a bit of lag, and in fact the two drivers are clipping through one another. I think they can't see each other on circuit, ladies and gentlemen, because they shouldn't be like that. And meanwhile all 3 of them are coming together, and it's Zabanero and Voito who are stuck together as Madder is losing pace, and Batu is now into the mix here, and Batu is, well, he's up into P5, but it's all chop and change as meanwhile up front Zig up into P2 and Nightfox in P3, but Zabanero holding off Batu and Voito. But remember, Voito, I think, is invisible to perhaps one or two drivers here because of the connectivity issues, but it does seem to have calmed down enough at the time being, as we see, looking back from Batu's car right now, he has got ahead of Mada, and Mada is very close to back of Batu, and Mada is actually going to look for a move to the inside and goes straight out the inside, and Voito can't find a way in as Batu cuts across to the apex, and Voito has made some moves up here, but we can see that it's all been chop and change. And Voito down to P7 for the time being, and Halstark and McQueen are now the ones who've got to find a way past the Polish driver here, the PRT driver, making their way up in towards turn number 8. So it's all chop and chase, but look at the rear of your camera shot. Now this, I'm wondering if there's a lot of tactical play going on here with the two drivers right at the rear of the field, in the fact that we have both of the ATR drivers here, both of the KRT drivers, Enjoy and Mycin, really holding back and not trying to go for any major moves. And we could also see we have got Yen J in the mix here from PRT. I think these three are all doing huge fuel saving, whereas we noticed that Batu is really trying to push his way up through the order, and Zig, it should be pointed out, has got past Jack, and that happened towards the end of this lap. We're going to see as he comes into turn 12, Zig is going to go for a lunge on the inside of Jack here, I think, or it's just on the run out the corner. I think Jack just simply lets Zig through because there's not much momentum. In fact, Jack lets Zig through, but he makes Zig go around the outside of him. What of the fact that Jack hasn't got as much speed in the car at the moment, because he knows that Zig is going for that 2-stop and Jack is only going for the 1-stop, of course. So Zig now has to open up the biggest possible gap he can over the next couple of laps from the rest of the drivers, because after this, it is literally, he has got to go to town and beat everyone into the ground in terms of race pace. But meanwhile, Mada in P5, he's alongside Batu here, but Batu battling for that P5 and holding off Mada for the time being, making Mada go to the outside. Mada goes out onto the AstroTurf but keeps the car collected. That tune on Mada's car is very stable, it's worth noting. He's run wide there a couple of times, we haven't seen the car go loose compared to other drivers. But Batu right now leading this pack of cars from P5 all the way down to last place, and they're all constantly trying to seize positions on one another while saving fuel. And McQueen in P8 there, you can see he's just looking for a move on Mada but can't find it this time around, as we do note that one of the KRT drivers has moved up on Yen J. I believe that is Mycin, who's up into P10 now. As we look further back, you can see the red cars intermixed with the white car right at the rear of your camera shot there. As we look further back here, you can see from McQueen's perspective how Mada is all over the back, and Mada goes to the move on the inside here and goes a bit deep under braking, and Voito pushes forward, but it's cost McQueen momentum, and now it all opens up and Halmstart comes through and Enjoy tries to come through as well, and it's one move that kicks off so many overtakes and so many battles, and you love to see it, of course. But at the same time, for McQueen right now, McQueen's probably absolutely pounding his dashboard, saying to himself, why are these guys fighting? We should all be working together. As you can see, that Halmstart looking to make the move on Mada, and Mada just simply holding it to the outside into turn 1 and doing a good job right now, Mada, of holding on to that P7. But you do have to wonder how long it will be until Halmstart does find a way through. Mada seems to be in two places right now, attack and defence, where they need to be in one, and it's working out in a difficult fashion, as we can see that Zabanera now catching up to Nightfox, and Batu is really trying to hunt down these guys up front. He has pulled a little bit away from Voito, who's in P6, and Batu will want to be up there in the P3 battle. But Zig, meanwhile, 2.7 seconds clear of TX3 Jack, and still increasing that gap at a gradual pace. Zig needs to do everything he can to pull away right now, because he'll know that every single second is critical if he's going for that 2-stop, unless he's opening it up to the 1-stop, and he's got to do a lot of fuel saving later on. And in fact, whilst we have got a moment, let's do some telemetry analysis, folks. Now we're coming to the end of lap number 6. Well, we can see that Zig, I think, has got 27% fuel remaining, so I think he's going to try and go to about lap 8 on that opening stint, whereas Jack, meanwhile, on 50% fuel, is definitely going for that 1-stop. Meanwhile, we can see that Nightfox about the same, Zabanero about the same, and we can see Batu on the best fuel out of our top 5 right now, and we're really doing everything he can after all those overtakes early on. Batu in the driving seat, if you excuse the proverb and pun, and then it's a case of Voito on a little bit better fuel than Batu, but behind, Halmstart going to the outside versus Mada and getting the move done, in fact. So we're going to cut away and check how that happened. So what you're going to see here from Halstark's perspective is that he's going to look to the outside versus Madder, and Madder holding that middle ground, and I think Madder's just going to simply going on the brakes here, not as heavy on the brakes versus Halstark, and Halstark hangs it round the outside. But of course then Madder may come back into turn 4. No, they don't. They decide not to, and now we can continue with the telemetry analysis. Halstark haven't put a lot of wear on that front right tyre. Halstark has had to do a lot of heavy braking in that car to get up to that P7. Madder, meanwhile, similar situation on fuel, as is, well, Enjoy's done a bit more fuel saving, in fact, a lot more fuel saving by comparison, and then we've got McQueen in the battle with Yenjay, and also what looks to be Mycin, and McQueen right now really good on fuel by comparison with everybody around him. So McQueen is the one doing the ultimate fuel saving, although there's contact between McQueen and Mycin and Yen there as they make their way into turn 10, but nothing dangerous coming out of it. So as we move around to come onto lap number 8, then as all our drivers make their way up the hill here, now the real question becomes who is going to go for the moves and who is going to start to look to try and pull away from the rest of the pack. Well, personally, folks, I think right now our top 4 or top 5 are all in very comfortable positions, given that Zig is the one who's on that 2-stop and needs to push harder and harder and go faster and faster, unless he really tries to do ultimate fuel saving now, which I just don't think is going to come out. But you never know, to be fair, with Zig. He may pull us a surprise. But further back, we can see that Enjoy and Madder going to town, and Enjoy now up into P8 after going around the outside into turn number 1 versus Madder. And Madder, to be fair, has done a very good job of trying to defend against these drivers whilst fuel save. You've got to give credit to the Storm driver. Whilst they haven't been the fastest tonight, they definitely have had a lot of racing spirit within them and have done the most to provide us with some fantastic entertainment, but also to show that they can drive very well when under a lot of pressure. And I don't think anybody will doubt that tonight. Indeed, anyone prospectively looking at the Storm community will feel that Madder has been a brilliant ambassador for them out on circuit here. But meanwhile, up front, we can see that Jack is now being reeled in by our rear guard of 3 drivers behind Jack, being Storms, Night Fox, Zabanera and Batu. These 3 all catching up to our P2 driver, who, having started on pole, having had Zig get past, is now in that position where I think he started to realise he's hitting the cliff in terms of fuel and tyre life a little bit, and he's just got to nurse it home, whereas Night Fox, Zabanera and Batu are feeling a bit more comfortable on their tyres here. And then we have got that sizable gap from our top 5. 4 seconds is the gap to Voito in P6, who is being reeled in by Halstark. And I think the TX3 driver is starting to put the pressure on as Zig is into the pits at the end of lap number 8. Now remember, he came into the pits with a gap of 6.6 seconds. He has now got to make this strategy work. He's got to make it work a lot more than he did the first time round in race number 2. And I think Zig has got it in hand to do a better job of it here this time around. As we look further back and we see that Madder versus McQueen. McQueen can't find a way past Madder. He went for the cut back into turn 1, but it didn't quite work out, and things continue down towards turn number 4. And I think really from McQueen's perspective right now, as we look back from him, and we're now going to look forward, it's a case of does he really need to make a move on Madder, or does he try and go for an undercut, perhaps pit on lap number 10, just to give himself a chance to make the pass on Madder through the pit stop, because Madder is driving very well right now and holding them off. As we say hello to Oscar Hunter in the chat, who is rooting on TX3 Jack tonight. But we pan forward, and Jack, remembering now he is the lead driver out on track, but Zig is the driver in question, maybe coming up. Jack is starting to find a little bit of time versus the guys behind him, and I think they're just adjusting to being running in the dirty air of Jack's car now that they're getting into that 7.5 temp zone. But our top 4 are clustering up, and we can see we have got 3 packs of cars effectively forming on track. The battle for P1, the battle for P5 and the battle for P8, and then we've got the lonely Zig in P12 who's on that 2-stop versus everybody else's 1-stop. Now, to reiterate those strategies for those who are wondering, the 1-stop will see our drivers coming in on lap 11 if you want the undercut on lap 10, the overcut on lap 12. Our 2-stop driver Zig pitted at the end of lap number 8 and is expected to pit again on lap number 12 or lap number 16 and then go to the end. So that's how it's going to play out, and we will wait and see with bated breath and wide open eyes, as we can see that Voito feeling a bit of pressure from Halstark this time. Halstark getting ever closer. Does the TX3 driver go for a move this time into turn 1? He doesn't look for it, but further back we can see that Madder has got a little bit clear as Mycin under pressure from McQueen, and there's been no change from these guys yet, so it's all staying calm for the time being. But you can imagine right now in the cockpits of a lot of these drivers, well, the virtual cockpits I should should say, that they are feeling the heat right now, and some of them are starting to get impatient. They just want to go racing, but they've got to bide their time, and if they save some fuel now, they may leapfrog someone coming out of the pits. But it's all going to play out now. In terms of that gap to our P12 driver, Zig is currently 32.5 seconds down on our race leader, but is starting to close that time down at a good rate of knots. So it is all going to come into play. I think Zig is going to be in that midfield come the end of the race tonight. But we're just going to have to be very patient with it right now, as we can see that Jack is definitely leading a pack of four cars all the way through, and Night Fox is coming under pressure right now from Zabanero, which Jack will be smiling about because it means he can pull away a little bit more as Batu's trying to get in the mix there again, and Batu is the one who's putting the pressure on. I wonder whether Batu will feel he's got enough fuel to just simply go crazy down the straight here towards turn number 1, because if he can use a little bit more of the rev range of that Fittapaldi EF7, then he will be able to get the move done. Perhaps even get a 2-for-1 special into turn 1. Will he go for it, or does he stay calm and stay behind? I think he's going to stay calm and stay behind instead, ladies and gentlemen. No signs of a move there from Batu, just playing the long game here, as Voito now coming across the line onto lap number 11, doing everything he can right now just to keep that momentum going. He's got Halfstark all over his rearview mirror, and we'll wait and see what Halfstark's going to do come the end of this lap. And Enjoy is there now as well, and Enjoy will probably be thinking to himself, why was I able to gain this ground earlier on versus our race leaders at the moment, as Batu goes to the move up the inside of Zabanero for position for P3 at turn number 4, and it was a well-timed move. I think Batu had been sizing this up, and I think what it means is now it just gets him ahead of Zabanero before they go into the pits. You could see Batu had been getting ever closer. As we see in the background, we have got some major contact going on between Madder and McQueen, and I think we're going to need to take a look back at what happened there. So coming all the way down in towards turn number 4, so we've got Mycin, who was actually behind Madder at this point, and Madder went deep, went out, and that's what happened, and Madder had to collect the car, and fortunately for them, no damage, but that's how they lost the 2 places. So Madder getting away with what could have been fatal for their race there, which was no damage to the car. That was a very difficult situation for Madder, well caught by them. But as they all come up the hill now, I think all of our drivers are going to be jumping into the pits via Zig. And now it's a case of who is going to have to take on the most fuel in the pits. So they all come charging in, and Jack is the one who's done the most fuel saving out of our top 4. And then as our second pack come in, we can see that Voito doing the majority of the fuel saving out of our next pack. And in fact, it looks as though the one who's done the most fuel saving is McQueen on 9% fuel, but where does Zig come out in all this? As Mycin is doing the same thing as what he did in race number 2. He went along on his opening stint in the 1-stop, and Mycin is going to do a 12th lap here to try and overcut everyone. This is a good and dangerous game he's playing, but it may just work out, as we can see that Zig now is making his way through turn 3, through the centre S's. He's gone. What is the gap this time between Zig and then Jack, who's coming out of the pits right now? Jack is on his way out, and the gap between the two of them, let's see what it's going to be as he emerges from the pit exit. Remembering that gap is going to be somewhere in the region of about about 20 seconds or so. It is 30 seconds. I think Zig could do this, folks. I really do think Zig could be up in that top 5. Actually, my apologies. No, the time's just reset. No, it hasn't just reset now. That gap is... I'm really sincerely apologise for that. The gap is 15 seconds now. I think Zig could find himself coming out towards the rear of the pack this time, and then it's a case of going charging all the way through to the very end. Because remember, the pit stop costs you 35 seconds here, and that is the thing that Zig has got to be wary of, is the fact that he's got to get himself into the mix of these drivers come the end of his second pit stop, and he's got time to go still. So we're going to keep an eye out for Zig as Mycin comes into the pits in the lead, and this is surely going to drop him further down the order right now. So as they all make their way through it, of course, that means Zig will be our race leader for the time being. 15.8 seconds clear of Jack and still trying to pull away. There's been no overall changes in the pits, as should be pointed out. Although I say that, no, Batu was behind Night Fox going into the pits. What about behind? Well, Voito, Halfstark and Enjoy all in the same. Oh, and Halfstark goes deep into turn 12 and goes wide and has to lift out of it. And Enjoy gains the position here. So Halfstark losing the position with a small mistake. And then further back, it's GTPL versus Madder. And I believe they have changed places over the course of the pit stop, and McQueen has lost out considerably in the pit stop. I think there might have been a bit of a mistake on the opening portion of his outlap by McQueen, because this has not worked out, and Mycin coming out of the pits on 95% fuel. So Mycin actually under-fueling the car, not going for the 100% refuel to go full competition in the final couple of laps, trying to get close, and Mycin comes back out in P9 and out of reach of the slipstream of Halstart. I do not think this has worked out for Mycin as much as he perhaps hoped. I think he was hoping he'd be right behind Halstart come the time he came out of the pits. So now the big question for Mycin, who goes very deep into turn 4 and just collects the car, is what can he do with a car that's slightly under fuel, and now he's got to go racing once again. But meanwhile, in that battle for P2, which is effectively the race lead right now out on track, because Zig will have to pit, of course, as we say hello to ATR Bennett and also Bartos in the chat, and we hope you guys are doing well, and ATR Colser as well. The summary is that Jack is leading by 7/10 of a second over Nightfox, who is under huge pressure right now from Batu, and Batu is being really the battering ram, as we said it time and time again, and I'm not going to excuse the pun, folks. He has literally been hounding people like a rabid dog, has Batu. The Turkish driver wants the win here. He wants the maximum possible number of points from tonight. Remembering all races are worth 20 points maximum, and he is going for it. Batu's going to get the move done, and I think that Nightfox has decided to lift out of it a little bit, realising that Batu is the faster driver and Nightfox will be better set not fighting, because then he keeps the gap to Zabanero, who's in P5 and only 1 second down on these guys right now. Meanwhile, further back we can see that Voito under huge pressure from Enjoy right now, as we look back from the driver's car, and the two Polish drivers of course will not want to go too heavily into a fight with one another, because whilst they're racing for separate teams, they're both representing the same flag and they don't want to take one another off, particularly with so many Polish viewers watching as well and supporting on. They'll want it to be as clean as possible, but Enjoy staying there for the time being and hoping that when the time comes, Voito will make it simple, I think, but Voito will probably have something else to say about that. As we're on lap number 14 right now, we've only got the best part of 9 laps to go, and it could be anyone's tail right now in terms of who finishes in that top 5 and who finishes in the upper part of our back order, as we see Mycin is falling back off of Halstart. This is not working out for Mycin. The gap has opened up to 3.4 seconds, and in fact Mada has gained, and hold on a second, what has happened here for Yen PL? There's damage to Yen's car. I think he's hit the wall somewhere. We're not going to get that back on camera, as Mada's car is in a clean state, so I think that Mada has passed Yen where Yen's made a mistake somewhere out on circuit, and McQueen, well, the car's not damaged, it's just gone very wrong for McQueen. I think he's actually had to pit for damage at some point as well, so that's why those two are so far down on our racing order. But our leader at the moment, Zig, 21 seconds ahead of the field and coming towards the end of this current stint. I think he's going to be into the pits at the end of this lap, and it will be forward attack now. 21 seconds. Remember, he's got to come out, he's going to be refueling it, and he will spend 35 seconds in the pits. And that's going to drop him, I think, somewhere around what will be P9. So Zig then will be on a full charge, and well, 2.5 seconds he can gain per lap. Of course, if people don't fight him, he could make his way through the field and get up into the top 5 here. This could be possible for Zig, as we can see that Jack right now is literally clustering up all the drivers, and he's got a trail of 4 cars behind him, and you've got to feel for Jack, as now Batu is trying to find a way past him and is pushing through. As we take a look at the driver's telemetry here, remember all drivers at this point are literally fuel saving as much as humanly possible, and we can see Zig is coming into the pits at the end of this lap. He's got to come into the pits, but everybody else right now is on the maximum possible fuel saving and tyre saving to get to the end of their one stop, the second stint of their one stop. And we can see that Jack, Batu, and Nightfox is on the best fuel out of these 4. They're all holding it together right now as our leader is into the pits, and we're going to see how he comes out before we take a look at our telemetry for the other drivers in the pack chasing after as it all continues. Now remember, Zig is in that pit and is being serviced right now. They're putting the fuel in the car, so our top 4 are going to make their way past. There's no doubt about that, as Enjoy and has found his way past Voito. It finally happened in the end. We're hearing it happen down into turn 12 on lap number 15. We didn't quite see that on camera, but that's what we're hearing on our earpiece right now. And Voito has made his way back into a slipstream, and where does Zig come out? Well, Zig here is actually just coming out of the pits right now, so this is not ideal. In fact, he's going to come back out in P11. He has not been able to jump a sizable portion of the field at all. Zig has now got to go racing, so this is not what Zig would have wanted, and he's got to go. In fact, that's P10 there, folks, but now he has got a window of 18.5 seconds to close down to our leader on a full attack. He has got the region of 7 laps to do it. 2.5 seconds he can gain a lap. I reckon we could potentially see him up into that top 5 by the end of it, but we will wait and see as we look back on our telemetry of our respective drivers right now, and we can see that Enjoy on about a 60% fuel, about the same amount of fuel as Voito, although Voito's got a tiny bit more fuel but a little bit more tyre wear. Halstart on less fuel than the pair. In fact, Halstart struggling on fuel by comparison in terms of the fuel saving, it would seem. Then we've got Mycin, who's on a similar amount of fuel to Halstart, but his tyres are much fresher. Then we've got Madder, who is on quite a poor amount of fuel here and feeling quite a bit of tyre wear. That is the telemetry of our top 10, remembering that Zig, well, we don't really look at his telemetry because of how hard he's pushing. But now focusing back on the race in action, Batu closing up to Jack. And will there be a move from Batu into turn 1 here? I don't think so. I think what Batu is going to do is he is going to chase Jack, put the pressure on, and then he's going to use that to save fuel and feel as though he can go to war with Jack come the final 2 laps. That's where Batu really comes to life. It's in the latter half of these long stints. That's where Batu feels so strong versus opposition, and he just about has that balance of fuel versus pace to go hunt down the race, and it's working out so well, is it, for the Turkish driver, as Night Fox is just falling away a little bit, as is Zabanero. But remember, these guys could be doing some tyre saving as well, just staying a bit further back and managing the car. As we see in that battle for P5, Enjoy is pulling away from Voito at about 2/10 a lap now, and it is a sizable gap that's opened up, and Voito is falling more and more into the clutches of Halstart, albeit Halstart has got the fuel saving issue to contend with, where he is using a bit more fuel by comparison with the guys around him, and he will need to save additional fuel come the end of the race to make it to the end on this one-stop stint. As we notice that Mycin is closing down these guys right now. Remember, Mycin went an extra lap on the opening stint of the one stop, and Mycin, having already cleared Madder, is chasing these guys down with a ferocious amount of pace and intensity as we look back up towards our leaders. And again, it's no change so far, but we do know that Batu is probably sizing Jack up and looking for that move right towards the end. And the TX3 driver has got to hold on right now and just be ready to defend for his life coming in, as Batu looks at the inside a little bit there, almost trying to say to Jack, I'm looking, I'm waiting for that move, I'm just waiting for the tide to strike, Jack, you'll know it's going to come when I send it. But in return, meanwhile, Night Fox and Dabanera are just staying within arm's reach of our top 2, and Enjoy is really starting to break away from Voito. He's actually pulled 4/10 over Voito over the last sector alone. I think Enjoy's gone for the break here to get away and hold on to that top 5 for the time being. And remember, right now, our P9 driver, Madder, is under attack from Zig, and Madder immediately flashing to the right to say to Zig, just get through, you're the faster driver, there's no point me fighting you. Madder realised it and just wants to bring home that top 10 result, and I think Zig will be very grateful that he didn't have to fight for that one, because now the gap between Zig and our race leader is 15 seconds. I don't think he's going to get to our race leader in time, but that gap to Mycin is now 6.2 seconds, and he is pushing everything. He is throwing the kitchen sink at it. He is going for it, is Zig, and we will wait and see what he's able to achieve. His fastest lap so far being at that 1:26.7, but he did a 27.6 last time out. Zig needs to find just that a little bit more pace on each lap now to close it down, as Batu now starts to look for the move versus Jack, as they come up the hill there to complete lap number 18. Batu going at full attack mode here and has got ahead of Jack. Jack made him go around the outside to do it, but now the question will be, can Jack come back at Batu to the end of this race? I mean, Batu has got it done. Jack looks the inside into turn 1. And he sides it up on the inside, and Batu holds the inside into turn 2. They give each other space here, as they always do. But you can see that Jack realises now's the time to compromise Batu's attempt to get ahead. And Jack instead holding on for the time being. So TX3 Jack doing that additional fuel saving as well, it would seem. And Batu will now be aware of that. He'll know that when he goes to the move, he's got to make a break from Jack. He can't just take the place and expect Jack to roll over. But in return now, Batu looking to the outside up into turn 6. It's all kicking off. Once again, Batu's going to go round the outside. Can he get it done as they pan through to turn 8? And Batu can't find a way round the outside just yet. Jack just holding him off for the time being. But it's all kicking off as we look back from Jack's car right now. And now with 4 laps to go, well, 3.5 laps to go, it has begun the battle for the race win. And we see Batu looks to the outside into turn 10. Jack says no and forces Batu to find somewhere else around. But Batu looks to the inside into 11. There's a little bit of contact as Jack squeezes him up onto the curb. It's all fair, mind you, as the door was always going to close eventually. But Batu putting so much pressure on Jack right now. And you've got to feel for Jack as he's trying to hold on. It has been a rough night for Jack. It's literally been from disaster to glory to disaster. And can he bring it back to glory in race number 4 as they all charge around to complete lap number 19 on to lap number 20. 3 laps to go. Who is going to win? As we see that Night Fox is getting into mix, having done a lot of fuel saving. And we notice, by the way, I think that we have seen a pass by Mycin and Voito up into turn number 1. Let's just double check that for you. I think Mycin had the run because he's passed Halstark already. Halstark limping home on fuel right now. And we can see that Voito defending to the inside. But Mycin got the move done around the outside into turn 1. And I think Voito just gave the place at the end, realising he didn't have the ability to defend it. But meanwhile, back up front, we should keep our eyes on what's happening around the here and now. And we can see that Batu's still trying to find his way past the TX3 machine. WSR versus TX3. It has been a huge story of race number 4, and how will it all end? Well, I don't think we can predict it right now, folks. Make your predictions in chat. Who's going to win out of our top 4? Will it be Batu, Jack, or will it be Night Fox or Zabadiro, who are just watching on right now as Jack is having to defend so hard versus Batu, and Batu is literally trying to find every which way to put Jack out of position to get that momentum as they all make their way down in towards turn number 12. And now as they're coming out of the final main corner and up the hill, we look further back once again and we can see that Enjoy has got Mycin closing on him. The two teammates are going to come together, and if Enjoy is losing time to Mycin, I think Mycin is going to be let through there, as we can see that Zig is now only half a tenth off of Halstark, so we will keep our eyes on that. But meanwhile up front, it's Jack versus Batu. Jack to the inside, Batu sweeps to the outside. He's got himself well ahead this time, going into turn 2, and does Batu close the door through 3? Jack's still there on the inside. Batu just understeers a tiny bit as Zig has passed Halstark for P8 into turn 1 from what I'm hearing. Jack is still holding on. Batu is still frustrated in trying to find a way through. The TX3 driver is holding on for dear life, and Night Fox and Zabadiro are now coming to blows, and the Greek is now going on the charge. I think the Greek has said, right, it's time for me to roll my sleeves up, and he's pushing it as they're all going side by side up into turn 6 and 7. I can't believe my eyes. It's like Noah's Ark. They go 2 by 2, hurrah, hurrah, into turn 6 and 7. And Jack versus Batu, they're still side by side into turn 9. Batu keeping his nose in there, and Zabadiro warning in as Jack gets a bit of snap oversteer, and now Zabadiro looks to the inside into turn 10. He can't make anything work there. Jack is literally running on thin ice now. Batu is all over the back of him, and indeed Batu's got to be careful as well, because those tyres will be one. And Zig, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Zig is up into P7, and he's got past Voito. He's hunting down both of the Polish drivers. Ahead of him is Zig. He is charging, but meanwhile in this battle for the lead, we can see when there's so much going on, it's hard to keep track, that Jack is holding on. 3.5 tenths is the gap. One more lap to go. Who is going to be our race winner? Who is going to make it? Will they run out of fuel as Night Fox looks to the outside versus Zabadiro, and Jack defending to the inside versus Batu, but Batu doesn't go for the move this time. Meanwhile, in the run up to turn number 1, we can see that Zig is getting ever closer to the back of the 2 KRT drivers ahead of him. It's all coming down to the final set of corners as Jack is going uber defensive into turn 4, and Batu tries to find a way around the outside. Can he go all the way around? He can't find a way. Jack is defending all the way. He's got 1 lap. He's got to hold on, and Batu is pushing. He's looking around the outside into turn 6 to try and get the cut back up into 7. Jack says no. He blocks the inside. Zabadiro looks to capitalise on it. The momentum is so fierce right now, and Zabadiro goes to a move, and Batu is is forced wide. Zabanero's up into P2, and Jack is given a break. Jack is going to make a break here, as Batu's now got to find a way back into P2, and there's only a third of the lap to go. There's only the best part of 5 corners, or 2 if you really count them, as Batu is knocked onto the grass by Zabanero. It looks like there was contact, which means that Zabanero loses out massively and rejoins in P7, does Batu. But coming out the final corner, ladies and gentlemen, leading this from start to finish in what has been a nightmare evening, but a fantastic way to end a race night. It is TX3 Jack by 1.1 seconds, and in P2 it's Zabanero with Night Fox in P3, Mycin holding off in P4, and Enjoy in P5, Zig P6, Batu P7, Vito in P8, House Stark in P9, and it'll be Madder who comes home in P10. He's coming home in P10 in the end. What a phenomenal end to the night, and Madder will be bringing it home, chuffed to the fact bringing that car home in what has been a difficult night for the Storm driver. And then it will be P11 to Yen J, making his way out the final corner right now. Give a hand for the PRT driver here as he makes his way across the line. And then last but not least, it'll be the Italian of McQueen, who had that damage on the car and had to go back into the pits. But what a way to end the night. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our race winner, TX3 Jack from the United Kingdom. Oh, what a crazy race number 4. You couldn't predict this. But here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Here are our final results for race number 4, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And I think there may be a couple of stewards' investigations, particularly with the incident between Batu and Zabanero at the end there. I'm not going to put any blame on anyone because I didn't see the incident properly. But TX3 Jack coming home in P1 ahead of Zabanero, and Night Fox rounding off the podium in what was a solid night for the Storm driver. P4 and P5 going to the combination of Mycin and Enjoy, and Zig, it was just 1 lap too short for him to potentially get a P4 in the end, but setting the fastest lap instead of 1:26.725 on lap number 12. And as we put it into our race standings calculator now, folks, to let you know how people have played out from tonight and who has gained the most and who will be moving up into the higher groups come the next round, subject to, of course, how all the other groups do. We're just taking a look through right now. Give us 2 seconds and we'll be able to come back to you. So I can confirm, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of our top 5 from tonight's racing, what I can confirm is that our overall winner from Group F tonight, in terms of who will have gained the most points, is Batu by a significant margin in the end over Mycin, who was P2. Overall in our standings, and P3 went to TX3 Jack in the end because of the 2 wins offsetting his 2 last places. 4th place went to Enjoy, and 5th place went to Zabanero, the Greek driver in the end, with that brilliant drive helping him recover what was looking to be a relatively difficult night. That P2 drive in race number 4. What a phenomenal evening, and it has been absolutely insane. But now, the big question is, post-race interviews, anyone? Well, Jack's up for an interview. I'm not surprised at that. Well, let's get Jack in here. I think Jack wants to be in here first. Let's have a chat to Jack. 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. We'll just get him in the commentary box. So just bear with us a second, folks. We're just inviting Jack to a party now. And hopefully, all being well, we should be able to just get him in here. And do let me know, folks, if you can hear him when he does join. Otherwise, we might have to do the settings changes for the party. So Jack should be joining us any moment now, folks. Okay, so Jack has just had to quickly hop out and run to the bathroom, which is understandable, but he should be with us shortly. But great racing by everybody tonight. Hello, hello. Is that TX3 Jack?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jack. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, Jack, firstly, congratulations on your results tonight. Phenomenal set of results, particularly in the feature races. You had 2 disasters in the sprints, but then first places in both of the feature races. How does it feel?
Well, I've been struggling with the car, like, since last week when I started practicing, so I wasn't surprised when I spun in the first race, but I definitely wasn't expecting to win, so it feels good.
Oh, that's brilliant. Just taking it back a step. So, going in tonight, I believe tonight's your debut in GTfusiOn?
Yeah.
So just building up to it, what were you expecting coming into tonight, given this is the first time you'd be racing in the series?
Well, I looked at the people who's in my lobby yesterday, and I didn't recognise any of the drivers, so I didn't really know what to expect. So.
And once you got out on track, how did it feel to be out there with the guys from even just in the pre-practice? Did it feel as though comfortable? Was it sort of you're nervous?
I was very nervous because it's more of a team's championship than a driver's one, so I didn't want to mess it up for the team. So.
And beyond that, then, so in qualifying, qualifying didn't work out perfectly for you, particularly qualifying 1. Going through the qualifying session, did you think more about, okay, just focus on the races, or was it a case that you felt you could have got more out of the qualifying sessions?
The first qualifying was actually pretty good for me. That was my best lap I've done all week by half a second, so I definitely wasn't expecting that, so I was happy with that. And then the second qualifying was terrible. I think I spun twice on the outlap, and then I spun on my first flying lap, and then I had a messy second flying lap, and I only got to have 1 proper lap, so that was really bad.
Okay, so going from qualifying to the races, then just take us through what happened in the first sprint race, because it just didn't work out. We saw you at one point, you're battling for the midfield, and then you just seemed to disappear.
Well, I was like in a big group and I tapped the back of Halbstart in the entry, and that made the car like have a wiggle, and then I lost the back end and went into the wall, so that was kind of race over because I got big damage. So then I had to come into the pits, and I was way behind, and then I spun again.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I think it was a sort of similar situation in the second sprint race, so race number 3. There was a little coming together, and that again caused you to pick up some damage.
Yeah, well, the incident in the second sprint race was, I can't really blame anyone. It wasn't really anyone's fault. It was more of a racing incident. Halbstart just made a mistake and brake too late, and then he couldn't really do anything apart from come back on the track. So
That's understandable. When we saw it, it did look more like a racing incident, as though you just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then as you tried to get yourself steadied out, everybody behind you sort of traffic jammed right into you. And we did feel very sorry for you for the fact that it just didn't seem to be united the sprints. But, I mean, the feature races, races 2 and 4, I mean, some people would say, well, you got to start on pole, so it's guaranteed you're going to win, but you had to fight for it in both races. Just take us through what it was like in those feature races, having that pressure to fuel save, but at the same time to keep that pace up and make it to the end on the one stop and bring home those wins.
the first one, I really wasn't expecting it, and I had quite a clear lead as well going on to the last few laps, so I just took it steady, and yeah, it was felt like there was a lot of pressure on me to not bin it, and the second race was amazing. I had to defend for like the whole of the second half of the race, and I didn't know how I did it, to be honest.
Well, we were definitely in absolute awe at you defending, and the fact that Batu just could not find a way through. And I think Batu, in the end, spent so much time trying to get past you. He had what was the combination of Zambanero and also Night Fox trying to get through. Of course, those two were battling with one another as well. But I think you've earned a lot of plaudits in the live stream chat where you're defending there. But what was your favourite moment of tonight? If you had to pick one moment that you'll take from this into round number 3.
Easily the second race. The whole of it was just so like a lot of pressure, and just it was really fun, and the defending for the whole race was really fun. So
Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us in the interview box, and also brilliant work out on track once again, Jack. Congratulations on the 2 wins tonight, and we do look forward to seeing what you could achieve in future rounds of GTfusiOn this year.
thanks. See you.
All the best, and good night to you, sir.
Good night.
Alrighty, folks. Well, that was words from TX3 Jack there. Brilliant driver, a very brilliant and fast young driver there, making names among the GT Sport community. And, well, that's his debut at GTfusiOn. What a debut. And congratulations to him once again. I think he'll sleep very well tonight. But I have had the pleasure of liaising with Jack before as part of the Ace Lift Design Endurance Championship. And, well, he's literally gone from strength to strength across different series. And now to see him in GTfusiOn is a phenomenal step up. We're just going to see if any of our other drivers are up for an interview. We'll just give it 1 minute. If not, we're going to be bringing a close on tonight's proceedings. And, yeah, it has been a phenomenal night. Now, if you had to ask me who's my driver of the day, I mean, it's impossible to really put a name, because we've seen so many brilliant battles. We've seen so many overtakes. We've seen so many brilliant pieces of strategic work. I mean, I would be inclined to give it to Jack straight away, because of the fact he bounced back from the 2 sprints where it all went horribly wrong. And in the end, he came home in first place in both of the endurance races. And I think Jack is the fan favourite tonight in terms of the redemption arc. However, for me, I think if you look further around the field, if you had to look at a sort of driver of the day elsewhere, I would say really it's between Jack and Zig. And the reason I would say Zig is just because of the fact Zig had that disastrous race too, but particularly race number 4, to come charging through the field like that at so much pace. It was great to see. Great to see him try to do something different. So I'm going to split it between Jack and Zig tonight. Jack for his recovery drives and Zig for his daring to do what others would not. But I think unless Hal starts going to say yes to an interview, we're going to be wrapping it up very shortly. And it's been brilliant to bring this to you, of course, ladies and gentlemen. And we've got plenty more to go with round 3 in the best part of a month and a half's time. But just before, we'll wait and see what Hal Stark says. And then we're going to call it there. So we just give it a brief moment for Hal Stark to type through. All right, Hal Stark's going to have a very short interview of us, so that'll be good. We're going to get Hal Stark in here, and then we will call it a night. All righty, so we're going to get Mr. Hal Stark in. And of course, chat, if you can let me know if you can hear Hal Stark when he comes into lobby, I'd be very grateful. Also when he comes into the party chat. Hello, hello. Is that TX3's Hal Stark?
That's me. Good evening.
If you give us
Thanks
2
for the invite,
seconds,
man.
we just want to make sure that you're coming through on the stream. Chat, can you let us know?
From my side should be okay, but guys, yeah, always hello to be shared. Chat, say something.
I'm
Can you
hoping
hear
they'll
me
say
for
something.
once?
Hold on. Yep, they can hear you loud and clear. Brilliant. Thank you for confirming, Fuji. Right. So, firstly, Hal Stark, congratulations on the results tonight. A difficult night out there for you. Just summarise for us how you feel about tonight.
Yeah, I came in pretty unprepared, like the most GTfusiOn rounds. I only did like 10 laps before to get used to the car a bit. But it was quite a handful, I found out, because it's like 600 horsepower, I think, with 1000 kilo. Really light, really, really sporty car. And as soon as there was weight in the car, fuel, I could completely drive it. It was good to handle and really quite soft to the curbs. As soon as I was in qualifying, when there was no weight from fuel, I was just flying around and I had really trouble setting a good time, and that put me in the midfield 2 times. And the field was so close, the drivers were so close with the pace, it was really hard to overtake. And yeah, I have to say the field was really disciplined at the most time, and they don't made too much of silly moves, especially on Interlagos, where you can dive bomb all the time if you want. Yeah, it was quite intense, but I couldn't really move up in the order. I mean, I think I overtook in total 3 guys. That's it. And then I stayed passive for the fuel safe race, for the economy race.
So, with that in mind, and what you described with the amount of practice you had a chance to put in, going into the races then, was it really more of a learning experience, particularly in race number 2, the first of the fuel saving races? Were you having to adjust your driving style literally as you were doing the laps?
Yeah, you can see in the first 2 laps I went into the back of some guys and I had to evade it because they braked so early and I wasn't prepared that they're dropping the pace so much. And I was really surprised and I had to evade to the outside and let someone through because I don't want it to hit them and cause damage. And luckily I got a memo from our TX3 Discord where to shift and how to fuel save, and that was all I know. That was all my experience going into the race, and yeah, it was just completely passive and let the rest come to me. And I was expecting people to bottle it left and right because the car is so drifty on power. And I was just waiting for someone to spin it, but no one. Just I had to make my own moves, actually.
Would
Yeah.
it be? To be fair, you had a really good race too, in the fact that you got that 6th place, and that seemed to set you up very nicely. Race 4, however, was a little bit more difficult. I think it was a P9 in the end. You just seemed to be a little bit low on fuel come the end of the final race of tonight.
Yeah, that really caught me off, like the amount you have to fuel in the second stint compared to the first stint, because in the first stint you can just stick to fuel map 1 and short shift and you will be good, because you have always slipstream, because the field is so close together, of course. But in the second race I had to put fuel map 2 or 3 even in the infield to even get to the end. That Yeah, that really surprised me when I looked up the fuel remaining display. And yeah, all the Polish guys just drove away. I couldn't really catch them as soon as I was out of slipstream. I was just watching them go away. And then the 2-stopper guys, which, yeah, I mean, absolutely all my best regards, or my, yeah, I really love to that they don't want to be that echo race, because they don't absolutely like that either, and they just, okay, never mind, I'm gonna get a 2-stopper and no, I don't care where I finish, and just want it to be a flat-out race. And I really appreciate that, so no problem that I lost the 2 positions to the Polish guys in the end. No problem for that. Yeah.
Well, looking forward then to round number 3. What's your number one thing that you're going to take from tonight into round 3 in a month and a half's time?
The thing is, I actually bought like a wheel or like a small setup, a Thrustmaster T300 and a playseat, and I don't really use it on GT Sport, only on iRacing. And when I'm back to GT Sport, I'm always using pad, like today's. I tried it with the wheel and I gave up so quickly, and I went back to my 5-year-old pad again. And yeah, maybe that's my goal, to be in a GTfusion round with setup and with a wheel. And I trained that much that I can say I can control the car and save the tires and don't ram anybody off. That would be my goal in the future.
Oh, it'd be
I
brilliant.
know the guys are fast. There's huge competition, so I can't just do no practice. That doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, we wish you all the best with that, and hopefully, when you come back for round 3, we hope to have you on the steering wheel and pedals and see what you can achieve.
Yeah, I don't. My English. I can't promise you anything in regards of that, because I'm a pet boy at heart and I'm never gonna give it up. But I really try to be more competitive. Yeah, but it's always fun. I mean, I only race for fun and close races like today. I don't really care much about points. That's all I'm here for.
Well, that's a good attitude to have. But with that, appreciate you probably looking to go grab your dinner, so we'll let you go.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your results once again, and thank you for joining us for a quick interview, and we wish you all the best.
Yeah, thanks for having me. No problem.
No problem. We hope to catch you again sometime soon.
Yeah, lately as GTfusion, I guess, when I have to drive again. Then I have to, yes.
But until then, have a good night, my friend.
Yeah, same. Have a good night. Bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for in terms of interviews. We're going to be calling it there, but it's been a fantastic night on GT Fusion. Round number 2, Group F. Fantastic racing all the way round. And well, now we've got the best part of a month and a half to round number 3 when we cast again. But remember, tomorrow we've got the top split lobbies of groups A to C of racing. I won't be broadcasting those, unfortunately, but other members of the broadcasting team, such as Benjex Motors, will, and El Loco Racing. And feel free to tune in for those. But from me, it's stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and remember to stay on track. I've been TX141, also known as Britain a Spit or Paul Walsh, depending on what media you follow me on. And good night.